family.
Oh, great. 4 years.
4 years, okay. You look familiar to me, and I'm wondering if,
I spent a lot of time up at Helena at the local government center and I came
in our
to,
committee meetings,
yeah, and I came to the workshop we did last year for the city
okay,
as well.
yeah.
And I think I've been at other meetings, at other training. Oh, and also League of Women did a 2-day training and I was at that one.
Okay, yeah, it's a small state.
Right.
Russ has a lot. Okay,
Frankie walked been on the board a year or something like that, or just over a year.
okay. Good.
Craig Erpenbach, and I've been on the board probably less than 6 months.
Yeah, 6 months.
Me, Cabrera, this will be my 3.5, so 4 in May.
Okay,
By the end of May.
great.
And my name is Bo Anderson. I'm general manager since April,
April, okay.
and I'm 76.
Not that anyone asked, but it's fun to know.
You can ask him about his health too, because he put it on his application.
Okay.
Josh,
Oh, Josh Simpson, assistant manager. I've worked with the district for almost 13 years.
13 years, okay.
and Jen, you are,
Jennifer Bernstein, been the board secretary for 2 years, worked here almost 3.
Okay, well, good. Well, I'm Dan Clark and I'm the director of the Local Government Center, based out of Montana State University. We're part of the extension umbrella. And our purpose is to work with local governments around the state. We provide technical assistance, training and research. And so we work with counties, all their associated boards, municipalities, their staff, elected officials and their boards, and then special districts that are created around by counties around the state. So quite a few, 56 counties, 127 municipalities, and about 1,500 special districts. So just a,
part of this education part, you work for the state of Montana as well.
or the university, Montana State University. is-
Yeah.
Yeah, but full
But you have
time.
a government function, meaning like on the federal level, when there are new elected officials, they tutor them and that sort of thing. Do you do that?
So yeah, we provide training for elected officials and newly, like last week, we just did a county elected officials training.
Okay,
So about 90 participated, and a lot of them were newly elected, that just were elected this last fall. And so it was the first chance to kind of, it's like, okay, got the tiger by the tail, now what? They go into office in January, but this was a training for them to get kind of oriented on their job, so.
Good.
Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's,
yeah,
it's a
no,
story I tell.
because I talked to you on the phone
Yeah.
a few times and you've been busy doing this and that.
Yeah. Yes, lots of travel. Yes, I've been on the road all week. I left Monday morning early and was in Sydney yesterday. Here today, tomorrow I'm in Bozeman, and then Friday I'm in Great Falls. So it's, yeah, we're always out on the road doing something, so.
Well, terrific.
Yeah, so thanks for being here. Thanks for your service. This whole thing works because people like you are willing to volunteer and say, yeah, I'll do that. And the best of your ability, try to help facilitate for the community, kind of these public services that are so important for our society to function effectively. So appreciate your willingness to do that. In the past, I served as an elected mayor of a small town in Montana, so I kind of know what it's like to both be on that side. And that's really what kind of kickstarted my career. I'm a classically trained agricultural education teacher. After doing that for a few years, I realized I don't like kids. Got out of that space. But anyway, my life kind of tumbled me into, got elected as the mayor, and that opened up this whole interesting world of Shoto.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know where Shoto's at, north and west of Great Falls. So I served there for 5 years and then working for the university at the same time. And then they had an opportunity to move me to Bozeman and work on campus. And then this job became available. I think there's a whole mention to get me into this job. And so they navigated me to this spot. Anyway, so I've been doing this since 2008, this job here, working with the university since 97, I believe. So
So does the age difference make it any better?
it
You said you didn't like working with
Oh,
kids,
kids?
you're doing the same thing here, but
Yeah.
now you're working with older people that.
so
Older kids.
Yeah.
age difference there is a difference, and yes, I'd prefer, and if you guys don't want to be here, you can just get up and walk away.
And you know, it's kids
Yeah.
anymore.
Or I could get up and walk away, but
Right.
that class, and I didn't like my life being run by a bell. right? Like bell rings and suddenly everything stops and yeah, anyway. Kids, hormones and tennis shoes, that's what they are. Anyway, so this training, we've got some handouts. I don't have a PowerPoint presentation, so you're welcome for that. So no death by PowerPoint. What I like to do is kind of solicit from you what if there's any areas or questions or issues you'd like to make sure we cover tonight. There is a framework I like to go through, but I also want to make sure I'm meeting your needs. So of all the needs that you might have relative to, I guess tonight's topic would be open meetings, citizen participation, you know, that would include minutes, noticing meetings, what constitutes a quorum, what are the things that qualify for a legal meeting, how can we create an illegal meeting to avoid it, not to embrace it, but managing electronic communication, all those things that the state law has created a framework that folks like yourselves that volunteer to serve in these roles may or may not know and understand that framework. And so if we can help you say, as a public board, this is the space that you need to operate in so that you can be do your job, do it well, but also do it in compliance with the law, so that whatever decisions you make can withstand a challenge by the public. But if you don't follow the law, even if it's the best decision in the world, it can all be turned upside down. So, so with that, do you have any questions or issues before we're done tonight at 11:30? I want to make sure we got that cut. Sneak that right in there. Suddenly I'm panicked. 11:30. So you got anything in particular you want to make sure we hit tonight?
Well, this whole was driven by the board, so I think, you know, you've been board members for many years. Josh and I, we've been on the other side, and it's always good to ask people, how are we doing? What do we need to do? And our board is no stranger to that, so I think it's important. Number one, you satisfied their need rather than Josh and myself. We want to listen to the board. They are our customers. We got to present this stuff. It's legal, timely, accurate. So I'd like to turn it over to Pam and Frank, the people who've been on the board a long time.
So I'm ready. Some of the things I jotted down as you were talking is what constitutes a quorum.
Okay.
There's been a difference of opinion whether that's a quorum of the number of board members specified in law or the number of board members currently serving.
Yeah, let's talk about that because it could get nuancy, and so we'll want to make sure we cover that.
And then managing electronic communication.
Okay.
Then several times the board has asked the management to include video and audio, video or audio recordings, which I think is required by law, and they never get it done. So I don't know what our responsibility is there.
Okay.
Not be created as a personal attack to
And
anybody.
the other thing that we're having trouble with is getting resolutions written prior to meetings, so they're included in the agenda and visible to the public. It's better than it was, but it's still missing a lot. And then the last thing is we're having trouble getting all of the information that the board makes a decision on included in the board packet 48 hours in advance of the meeting.
Okay, so say notice.
You get notice, but not of everything.
Yeah.
Can you hear Doug?
And we can talk about the new.
Complete packet, complete
Yeah,
minutes,
same.
complete attendance is what we're missing.
We'll call it board packet. Yeah, so there were some changes in the last legislative session that deal with this in more clarity. It's what we've been training and teaching boards for years, what would be an appropriate expectation. But it wasn't specifically clear in the law. Now the legislature has made that part of the law clear, which is nice because what we've been teaching is now what they've said is what we expect. So we can talk about this part and this part here, the new changes to the law this last session that talks about that. Yeah, good. And
You mentioned public notification, participation.
yeah, we'll say public. We'll talk about public comment. Comment. Public comment. Yep. and how that fits, why, public comment. And we'll talk as well about what's the framework that we're operating from. If you understand the framework or the rationale, then these decisions of how we conduct ourselves makes more sense. Without that, it's like, why this is such a hassle? It seems like a pain in the butt to do this. It's extra work. But we put in the context of who you are, what you do, and why you do it, then it makes perfect sense. So
What constitutes a legal meeting and a legal committee?
okay. So legal meetings.
Can I get mine in red?
These are usually more important.
And what was the other one you said? What was the other one you said? Legal meeting?
And
What was it?
committee.
And committees, yes, we'll put that down here just in red because you asked for it. You've got the option.
I just wanted to change that.
So committees, and what their role is within the organization, what are the expectations for committees' work, in particular, related to all this, right? So it's not uncommon for me to get a call that says, hey, we're trying to get around, I always love it when they start with that, trying to get around the law. So we've created these committee structures, so we don't have to do all this monkey business here. So we can conduct the business, be more efficient in what we do, because we've created this whole committee structure. We'll talk about that in relationship to this, and we'll show you in the law what it says and how that ties in. So it's not a way to get around it, I'll just say that, but we'll give you a specific slide. Yeah. So other thoughts, is that pretty
So
good?
under that legal meeting, McDonald's coffee table,
Yeah, so that's we'll talk about, in that legal meeting, we'll touch on, if three of you are hanging out at McDonald's having coffee, what is that? What about three of you, because there's seven, so four of you doing that, what does that mean? If it's just two of you, what does that mean, right? So we'll talk about, where's that line? And so we talk about that. That's a bunch, what else?
Well, the other thing that, the other pattern that's happened is a serial meeting where chair meets with each board member one by one
So we can say,
to get around the law.
yeah, we'll say walking meeting.
Yeah.
Cause I don't wanna write stereo. Well, probably write it CEARL.
just put Fruit Loops
Fruit
down.
Loops. So yeah, the serial meeting, that concept, and again, I'll just say this. This board, its structure and creation is not intended to be convenient for you. So just lean into that. It's not here for your convenience. This board exists to facilitate for the public how they want this particular service delivered. And they have elected you, whether you were appointed or not, but these elected positions to represent their interests. So there's this interesting relationship that you have with the public you serve. And there's certain expectations that are placed upon you as a governing body or as an elected official in this role as a facilitator. There's this relationship, and I talked about this relationship, it's a sacred relationship because what's happened is the public has surrendered their decision-making ability to you. You got something coming in?
We just started, Tom. We couldn't wait.
Come on in, Tom. You missed the pizza. We all ate it, so.
Tom has a lot of knowledge about open meetings, so you might ask him if he has anything to contribute.
So what we've been talking about is what is it that we want to cover through today? So this is kind of a mini agenda. And so if there's anything you see here that is not covered on that list that you would like to see us talk about, feel free to let us know.
Duties of the board versus day-to-day operations.
Okay. How do you want? Let's put it this way, legislative versus executive function. That's a CTI. Well, we'll cover that. That's a good one too. We'll give you a chance to review that, but. So what I was saying is there's this relationship that you have with the public. What they've done is they've surrendered their decision-making ability to make decisions about you're just water, right? We're not a water sewer district, right? So it's just water, right?
We took it clean.
Keep it clean. So they've surrendered their ability to make decisions about their water system to you. in return, you have committed to them that with that trust you've placed in us to make decisions on your behalf, that we will make sure that you know when we're gonna meet, you can access and participate in that meeting, you can weigh in with comment, you can observe all of our deliberations, you can examine any document we create. So that's the transparency, that's that give and take. The alternative to a representative government is we're all gonna meet at the high school gym Thursday night, and we're gonna have a discussion, and we're all gonna vote on it as a community or as a membership of this district. And we've decided long ago, there's way too much Netflix to watch in this world, that we're not gonna spend our evenings hanging out at the high school gym fighting over our water. We've elected you to do that on our behalf with the understanding that you're gonna be open and transparent, you're gonna allow us to weigh in and participate in that process. So when I say it's not designed for your convenience, not designed for you to be efficient, it's designed for you to facilitate what the public can't do for themselves, which is make decisions about this big, complex public system. So once you understand that, it's like, oh, that makes sense then. We've got to go through all this process because it's not your district. It's their district and you're just a steward. Your stewardship is your, for a time in this seat, listening and facilitating what is it all that you need and want relative to this system, right? And we'll talk about what that looks like. And then how do we make decisions for the best use and the future of this district? And it's, effectiveness and longevity and all that stuff.
We have a chair.
There's a chair over here if you'd like.
And this is Evelyn Piper, and she's a reporter for the Elton Family.
Oh, hi, welcome. Now I gotta watch my Qs and Ps.
Yeah, she's also very knowledgeable about open ed, she's had a lot of training.
Great, great. Well, welcome, glad to have you here. So with that caveat, right, so just understanding that, it's like, okay, this is a different relationship we have. So one of the things I'd like to ask is why did this area, this community, so to speak, create a water district? What's the point and purpose of it?
The history.
Well, just why? What? Just generally, why would it? Why do this? Why not just everybody have their own well?
Well, their groundwater was contaminated decades ago.
Okay, so we have contaminated water.
We
So
have some well, but.
that's right.
I don't know if it's got any water in it right now.
So there was a certain point in time that said, look, this doesn't make sense for all of us to have our own personal well and likely our own little pit toilet next to it and our own burn barrel, right? So in society, we long ago decided, look, it doesn't make sense to be responsible for all these things. It would make a better use of our time and energy and resources to pool our resources together and create government to provide some of these essential services. So let's get rid of our pit toilet and our pump well or pump jack next to it, right? So we're just drinking our poop anyway. Don't put that in there. So he said, let's abandon that where we're all responsible for our own thing. And let's pool our resources together. We'll create a district. We'll tax ourselves or give our taxes and fees and assessments to collect revenue to deliver this service to all the people in this district. And how is that going to be managed? We're going to elect people from our district, just common folk, to come together and facilitate for everybody else. How are we going to make decisions about that district? How are we going to deliver the water? At what level, what quality, what quantity, what price, all that stuff. Making sure we're making decisions about this system that's not just for today, but long into the future, right? We've got to be thinking about the future and how do we position ourselves to make sure we'll be around for a while. But I like to say we create government because it's more efficient to do things collectively than it is individually. And this is one of those prime examples. It doesn't make sense because the water is contaminated or not available or whatever. We can then make a collective investment to get good, clean water and deliver it. And you folks are at the table today making decisions about it. You've taken over for people that have been here in the past and you're going to hand it over to the people in the future. So you're just here for a spot. And it's not just, think about it, it's not my system, it's their system. And I have this sacred trust that they've placed on me, all the people who live in that district placed in me to be thoughtful, deliberative, making decisions that are in the best interest of all of them, not in your best interest, right? Sometimes your best interest might come in conflict with what's in the best interest for all the users out there. And we're trusting you that you're gonna be thinking about all of them as the users, not what's in your best interest. And that's kind of that responsibility and that weight that's placed on you as a board member that you gotta be considering in your deliberations and decision-making about the board. So that's kind of big picture, right? That's the big glowy fun stuff to talk about. So then that trickles down to say, okay, now how do we operationalize that? Great, Dan. We've all pooled our money together, right? So taxes, I'm sure you've got some sort of tax base with this, no taxes, just fees, straight up fees. So you probably paid off whatever, you might have gotten bonds way back in the beginning and they're all paid off. So now it's, okay.
Now we still have bonds.
You still have bonds?
Still have bonds and.
So they're paid
Back
for,
in- But back in the old days, SIDs were bad.
yeah,
People actually paid to put in pipe.
yep,
They still do. And
Yeah.
they still do, I mean, for example, even in there, so there's a lot of public and private, money that's been put
yeah.
forward.
A lot of treasure put into this because,
Plus, a lot of people are worried
yeah,
about what's going on here because they put thousands of dollars in to make sure they have water here. And, yeah, let's just leave it at
yeah,
that.
no, yeah. So, yeah, so it's all legitimate, right? And so making sure that how we conduct ourselves and purport ourselves is gonna be consistent with this framework. So that's the ideology around this. Now let's back up and now talk specifically about Montana and the structure that we've developed in Montana around this space. So I hold up for you our state constitution. Not very long, not real big. It's, I don't know, 72, 76 pages long. What is it? It's not very big and it fits in my back pocket, right? So this document, 70, I can't read. So this document is really this high altitude document that explains at a high level how our government's structured, what its powers are, what its purpose is, limitations to its powers, and what are the rights and privileges and expectations of the public. That's all contained here. So it's not a whole lot of words, but it provides this broad framework and expectation that in the state of Montana, this is the guiding document that all government spawns from. And then, so if we look over at this on here, so we say, so that was adopted in 1972, replacing our 1889 Constitution, which I don't think was very good. I really like this one here. It's super slick. And this is, in fact, this is the Constitution that law schools around the country will use as an example of a well-written constitution, state constitution. All right, so you have the Constitution. Now, when they adopted, when we all voted to say, yeah, we agree with this Constitution, who gets it next and what do they do with it? Just so to be clear, we're not governing day-to-day operations of government in Montana only from this. Okay, so there's more to it than just this. So what's the next thing? State law. So now we have state law. So now that goes to the Montana legislature. And what they do is they create the Montana Code Annotated. Now, I don't know if you have a copy of the whole MCA, but if you were to have all of the Montana Code Annotated, it's 99 titles, right? It would fit on a shelf that would be about this big. Tens of thousands of pages of law that converts this into a lower altitude of operations. Lower altitude. Because then it doesn't stop there. Here it says, okay, it basically is a framework. You've got two sections of these tens of thousands of pages that govern your district, a water district in Montana. Two sections, 35? No, 13, 713, 24, 22, 23. Okay, so that's the MCA. Now, in this expectation, you have to then create your own local policies. Because in my experience around the state, when you've seen one local government in Montana, you've seen one local government. Because each local government has the ability to create within this framework how they want to operate. So your water district's gonna look different than the Paradise Valley Water District. They're gonna create themselves around what is in the best interest and need of their district. So they meet, they facilitate, and as long as it's within this framework, they have that flexibility and ability to do that. So you go ahead.
Well, there's two frameworks below that, and that's AG opinions.
Oh, we'll
Which-
get there.
Okay.
Oh, we're getting there. Oh, yeah, we got lot of paper here left to go.
Okay.
So here's the statute, giving us this broad framework. So then you are responsible at the local level to create your local policies. So within that framework, here's our local policies, how we're gonna do our day-to-day operation in our district. So you're adopting these local policies, and that's when it becomes, oh, and then you have what I would say, traditions, and norms. Local policies, these are things that are written down. And you've decided this, we need to be clear about this. This is something that's gonna have to last from board to board, generation to generation. These are the things that are the core of who we are and what we do. We write those things down. As things come up, it's like, oh gosh, how do we do this? How do we deal with it? I don't know. Let's create a policy about it. We're gonna talk, we're gonna facilitate a conversation with the community. Here's our new policy. We're gonna adopt that, write it down, and that's gonna go in the book, and we're gonna follow that moving forward. And then there's these traditions and norms that you do. It's just this, we've always done it this way. And sometimes if it's not written down, that can be overthrown, or this can be a source of conflict within the board because we haven't written it down. And just because we've always done it this way, you come on the board and said, yeah, I don't want to follow that. If you don't have rules saying one way or the other, I want to do it this way. Now suddenly you're tipped upside down. And you got to fuss through that until you come to some resolution. So boards that don't spend much time focusing on this and they operate by that are very vulnerable to this being flipped upside down and all your stuff. How many of you joined the Water District Board to fight over bylaws? Thinking that's what I want to do. No, you're here because you're interested in delivering water, right? That's your focus, that's your interest. But without having good policies that provide that guidance, you have the potential of tipping upside down and fighting over these things. So my suggestion for you is things come up, figure out what's the best way to move forward on that issue. Let's write it down, and that becomes our new policy. And we get less and less of traditions and norms and more of guiding policies. So then when you show up, it's not a question of who's got the strongest voice and what bend of the rules or the norms we're going to follow today. But you say, here's the rules. We've decided how to conduct business. We're here to execute, make decisions, do the things that we're asked to be done. There's a bucket load of stuff that requires a lot of attention to run these things well. And if you're spending all your energy fighting over the internal politics or whatever else, everyone's pissed off because everyone's unhappy. Everyone's unhappy because you're really not doing the thing that we really need you to do because you have all this inside baseball fighting that's going on. So we got to flip that and change it. Go ahead.
I'm just gonna give you an example here that.
Sure.
That we need to look at, and it's the fact that, Montana legislature says, we're on this board and we get $100. Like, we spend hundreds, 40 hours a week, my gas just to come here is not even covered, and so we had it $150 in our local policies. So like, it's $50 more.
Yeah.
And so it's like, my God, we fought over that for 4 damn months, and I'm like, you know what, $50 for what we're doing here?
Yeah.
Who the heck want, and that was the problem before, when they had the board back in 2010, nobody wanted to show up.
Yeah.
Said, why would we go to a meeting with nothing, all that happens is, for what, $100? So which one of these would take precedence on that at that point?
What, that was a question, right?
That's what, do we follow legislature or what local policies are
So-
150 versus, it's stupid.
Yeah, no, so what I understand here, so if your policy, if the legislature through the MCA gives you authority to do that, then it's at the discretion of how much here. And that's a local
But they
decision.
don't, they do not.
Yeah,
The legislatures-
I'm not, we won't get into that, that's
But
another
that's the fact,
conversation,
the
but
legislature said $100, or you need to put it up for a vote of the public.
Or you let him keep talking.
yeah, so that could be a future conversation you have, but the principle being is, here's the framework, operate within that framework. if there's question about whether this or that, you should have legal counsel to go to your attorney and say, can you give us an opinion? Because you have an opinion, you've got an opinion, you've got an opinion, we all got opinions. That's why you have an attorney to interpret the law for you. Here's our opinion. Now you can take that opinion that they give you and say, okay, now how do we build around it? Or you can say, pound sand, we don't agree with that. We're gonna continue to fight.
And that's where we keep fighting over stuff is because people, well, this is what it says here.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, my gosh, you know what, if you follow this, but we're looking at what the local policies need to be done. I mean, we have more fights over going from meeting miles and,
Yeah.
you know, stuff that is just ridiculous. Like, we're not getting anything done by fighting this over and over
Right.
again for 3 years.
And so hopefully we can get there. So we're no longer, because what the fight is that we're trying to convert from the norms and traditions to this.
Okay, local policy, we have local policy, I'm to say, it's $150. And then all of a sudden, 4 months of fighting, 2
Yep.
years of this, because somebody says it's in Montana legislature, blah, 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 $100, and it went over and over and over again.
Just because people say it doesn't mean it's true.
Okay, so that's
So-
what I want
so
to make sure that.
Just because it's said and uttered doesn't necessarily mean it's true. They can say it with all sorts of conviction and authority. It doesn't mean it's true. I would say, what does your attorney say? I can give you my opinion. It's not worth hardly the email I was sent on. Seek your good competent legal counsel to help you navigate that. And they say, look, if payment is at your discretion, then you decide what that level
And
is.
that's where it was at.
Yeah.
And then-
If the attorney says it's $100 and you gotta say it's $100, if the attorney says it's at your discretion, you decide, you decide.
we had-
I'm not here
Yeah,
to fight that one way or the other, but that's,
we had it
that's what I
on,
was
the
saying.
attorneys already put it there.
yeah.
And it was like, okay, but this is what Montana so what I'm getting at was. Which one takes precedence? Our attorney who made that decision, or was it Montana legislature? Because it's written there that it should be only $100.
So the attorney should be giving you an interpretation of what this says.
Okay,
So if they're saying this is what the law says, then that's what the law says. If we're arguing over what the law says, I would seek the attorney's opinion to clarify this is what the law means. That makes sense?
no, but that's okay. I'm not gonna fight over $50 because it's not gonna work. It's not, but that's what we're having trouble with.
Yeah.
Is people on this board will say everything is according to MCA, Montana legislature, and local policy has it in there in our own constitution, that, and then they'll fight against that and say, well, that's what we need to do.
Yeah.
And that's causing a heck of a lot of problems.
Yeah.
I'll be honest.
Oh, yeah.
That's a
A lot of
ridiculous.
energy could be spent in that washing machine,
Yeah.
and that's where, so just trying to strip it down, say, what does this say? And because what the legislature says now, sometimes in the law, they will use ambiguous language. Shocker. So the legislature uses language that is unclear, and if you are trying to be clear for our local policy, right, we want to know what is the specifics of the law, and if it's unclear, I don't know where to go. In particular, if it's something that's a constitutional issue, like an open meetings thing, if it says, well, let's just do that right now, let's just, page 1, I didn't want to say 1, page 1 of your handout, your packet. We're not gonna cover everything in this packet, by the way, it's just for your own nighttime reading, but we'll use this as a resource as we go through this conversation today. So you look at page 1, at that middle of the page, 23103, well, let's start at the top, start at the top. Our Constitution has in Article 2 is the Declaration of Rights. These are the rights that we have as Montanans. Section 8, 9, and 10 are relevant to our discussion about open meeting, citizen participation, the right to privacy. So Section 8 says the right of participation, the public has a right to participate in the agency's decisions that are, let's say, expect governmental agencies to afford reasonable opportunity for citizen participation in the operation of the agency before final decision. So that the citizens have a constitutional right to participate in the decision-making process before you make final decision. Go ahead.
That question. If 7 members, so if 4 are together and they're discussing anything, but they're not there to vote. They're there for fact-finding information. Is that considered an open meeting? It must be posted, it must be available to the public.
Excellent question. one that we will get to in a minute. We are on the path to get there. You're just a little bit ahead, but so I don't want to just jump to answer that question because we'll lead up to it. The suspense will kill you. It'll be touching your heart soon. But yes, we will get there. It'll be exciting. You'll say, oh, got the answer there. So we'll get there. Good question, because that's part of this discussion over here. What constitutes a legal meeting? And you're kind of describing that framework. So to get there, one is to understand, what does the Constitution say about an expectation for you as a government agency to provide an opportunity for participation by the public? So you have to provide, what does it say, reasonable opportunity, and the law, so as provided by law. So the legislature that has to create the statutes that define for you how, or what is the framework to ensure that you're doing the right thing in the law to satisfy that. Making sense?
Let's say we have, like you say, reasonable participation from the public, correct? But what if the public does comment and no one on the board even recognizes that? I mean, we hear them, October, 7 people talked about one issue and went right out of the board. Nobody even said, you know what, so what? We're gonna vote this way anyway. So what does that mean? Why do we even have a public comment if the board is making the whole decision without even realizing what the public had to say on this?
So that's your issue.
So that's a local fault.
That's a local thing that you guys as a board have to decide. As we receive
So in
this
other
comment,
words,
how do we deal with it?
Then
Are we
I
gonna-
guess the question is then public comment doesn't make any difference whatsoever.
So what you're doing is you're allowing it to happen. The other part is, are we going to do anything about it?
That's
Is
right.
it something within our purview? Can we address it? Is it already been addressed? So not every comment is something that you have to respond to. But what is it that's informing us as we make decisions about the management of this essential water system for our public, right? We drew a line on a map, put in infrastructure, asked you to run this thing for us. We're giving you money to do it, right? So there's a relationship there. So I think there is a duty for you to listen and try to think about, is there something here that we can act on? Again, just because it's said doesn't mean you have to respond, right? So, but you gotta figure out, is there validity to this? Do we do something about it? And we'll talk about how do we incorporate public comment in our decision making. We'll kind of reveal that as we go through the night here. I can tell already we'll be done by like 6:30, but it's gonna go fast. All right, so here we are. So now we did that right to participate. The next one says that no person shall be deprived of the right to examine documents. So there's a constitutional right that the public has to examine your documents. So any document that is created by you, either electronically or written or typed out, anything that's produced by this organization, this water district, the public has a right to examine that. So just know that there's retention rules about how long you retain information and records for public to view it. So
Excuse me.
go ahead.
1 second.
Yeah.
It doesn't say any document. You said any document.
Yep, I
in
did.
Writing. So obviously, we have electronic,
Yep.
we have spreadsheet, we have Word doc. And I have read that in the Montana law, even though the minutes are not written yet, they're in draft form, you gotta make them available. And that's very peculiar. We don't think about that, but it doesn't matter what form they are, whatever you have documented regarding a case is public. Work form, not finished, or.
Title II, Chapter 6, I think, is the one that talks about public information.
Yes.
Anything that the public, anything that you create is public information that the public has a right to examine. And so it's very, quote unquote, small L liberal. It's very open, there's not a lot that's held back.
Most open in the whole United
Yes.
States of America.
Yes.
Does that mean that if you write minutes and they're not approved at that point,
Even before.
they can look at it? Is that correct?
She could ask, whoever, if anyone's
I didn't
taking
do that
minutes
right.
now.
I
So
did
you
wrong.
could ask, can you make a copy of your minutes for me?
Right.
And you just write, at the top, notes, unapproved minutes or whatever,
Right.
and they would be available.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, your emails, that any sort of email that you're writing relative to this, to your service here, that's dealing with a public issue, could be part of the public record and is
That's
available.
why we're taking sign language lessons.
There we go. We just gotta walk down the hall and talk face to face rather than sending an
That's
email.
exactly
It's
right.
not a related issue then, so Jen just sent out the draft minutes for November. But basically, those could be posted on the website, but labeled draft.
Up to you. They
But,
could,
but I mean, why wouldn't we? And then.
that's
then
a
you run-
decision for the board. That's
Right.
that's a policy decision of the board. There's nothing requiring you to, right? So you've got to decide at what level of transparency, what level do we want to extend? So it's, again, if you've seen one government, you've seen one government, right? Each one's gonna decide how to do that differently. Some may choose to do it, some may not. But the law does not currently require you to put or to post any of your minutes. That's a local decision, whether, how you want to manage your minutes. They must be made available, but what level do we want to push them out? Go ahead.
So,
But as long as somebody asks for those minutes, you have to provide them.
okay,
Yep.
So
thank you.
you do not have to post them, but if somebody asks, you have to make them available
Yep.
to.
But
So-
the law does require all the special districts to submit their minutes to the county.
Yes, and I can show you if you want that section of law. It's in Title 7, Part 1, Chapter 2, 206, 71206. So all special districts. And that was, the legislature, I think, did that in 2019 or 17, saying that, look, people, because think about how many special districts your community is living in, right? There's you, do they have a sewer district too, or no?
No.
So that's septics. So sewer, so you got the school district, you have maybe a fire district, there's a lot going on here. And so instead of having to track down these minutes all over the county, they say, look, let's put them all with the county clerk and recorder. They can warehouse them, and so I can do a one-stop shop. I can show up there and I can get minutes for all these special districts.
I love the approved minutes, is that right?
Approved, so 30 days after approval, within 30
But
days. they need to be
drafted
submitted.
minutes that have not been approved do not have to be.
No. Those are what they call working papers of the
Okay. Thank you
organization.
very much.
Once approved, they become official minutes. Yeah.
At what point is it legal to charge for that information?
So in the law, when they changed this one, the public information law, you can charge a reasonable amount of money for the expense of producing the document. Now, I would say minutes, agendas, board packets, I wouldn't charge for that. I would just make them available, put them online, just push it out there. But if they want to say, I want to see, your capital improvement plan for the last 30 years, and you have that as a document, here's the other thing, they can only request a document that exists. If they say, I want to see all the federal funds that you've received over the last 30 years, if that's not in an existing document, you don't have to create that document to satisfy that request.
Okay.
You can say, well, if you'd like to come in, our office is open from 8 to 5 or whatever, Monday through Friday. We can show you where that information is. You can get it, or for a fee, we can compile it, but you don't have a duty to compile anything that doesn't already exist.
And the fee is,
Fee is reasonable based on the cost of producing it. So a copy machine, you can prorate the use of a computer, people's time. Legal review, apparently right now, from a district court ruling, cannot be charged. I think Lewis and Clark County or Helena, one of those two, they were going to charge the cost of legal review to ensure that there wasn't any privacy information being disclosed. And so then they were going to charge the rate of their city attorney, and that person sued, and the court said, yeah, good try, but you still got to make sure you're not releasing that information, but you can't charge that as a part of the reasonable fee. Now, that's still district court, so it's kind of still squishy, but that's pretty much the standard right now.
Well, district court carries more weight than we opinion, does it not?
I think the Supreme Court would be more than the AG. District court and AG are kind of in that, from what I understand, but I would say it would be the Supreme Court would be the definitive answer on some of those things, because there's still the appeal process that could be wrong.
Yeah.
As the AG opinion could be as well.
so, I gotta go back to local policies real quick, because there's something about coming up in 2025, and I hate to bring this up, and this $100 thing is ridiculous, but there's push right now that we're gonna have to change at the legislature level that that stipend for the board members can be at any discretion of the board at the local policy. So we're gonna be wasting Montana legislature time to add $50 more to
Yeah.
a stipend when it's already in the local policy, correct?
Yeah, sure. I don't recall having it say 100.
Yes, 100.
Does it say 100?
Yeah,
Okay.
and
I
point
don't
of,
read
point
that.
of order, as a practical matter, all board members voted to reduce the compensation to $100 except for two, one of which was me.
Don't point at people right now.
But I mean, that's
And
just,
I'll put the same
that's the
thing on
fact.
you too.
so,
Yeah.
so I mean, it is board policy that we pay $100, so that's one and done.
The $50, what I understand is, for expense associated attending the meeting.
That's
You have to
correct.
travel.
And that's,
So
and that
it's
would,
not like 150 or 100, the $50.
So I think that, I haven't looked at it in a long time, but it may have something in those statute that you can compensate for the expenses.
Doesn't say.
It doesn't say.
Doesn't
it
say.
doesn't.
So-
No, but it says it's associated with the
This
meeting.
was pretty steady, let's move
That
on.
is,
Yeah.
yeah, it's.
So that, those are, yeah,
It just did the point that
Yeah.
I'm trying to say is some people on this board take everything that's in that Montana MCA as God's gift to the rest of this district. When
Right.
there are local policies that make more sense to run this thing as efficiently as possible.
so in response to that is your local policy. The extent that these exist is based on the framework that this provides. You don't have the ability locally to go beyond what they say here. This is structured based on what it says here. So there's this whole flow. So there, you can't get too entrepreneurial with your policies because there is this framework that exists. So that's why I say this is where your attorney is going to help you understand, this is what this says, and so these need to be in compliance with that. For whatever it is, right? So, and that's just how it works. So as time goes by, this can be converted into these, and this becomes less, which is always a risk. But there's always gonna be some of that stuff, right? Just the collegiality and how we want to conduct our meetings, but sometimes collegiality falls apart, and so we're gonna make a rule, right? This is gonna be the rule, and this is how we're going to conduct ourselves. All right, so I draw a line here. Because back to what you were saying about, whether there's ambiguity in the law, so, oh, shoot, I didn't finish this. You with me so far?
It answers a lot of questions that are coming down.
That's, hopefully, yeah, and hopefully it'll help you be more streamlined in what you do, because now we're all talking from the same hymnal. We're singing from the same hymnal, whatever. So no person shall be deprived of the right to examine documents or to observe the deliberations of all public bodies, except in the case in which the demand of individual privacy clearly exceeds the merits of public disclosure. So two things happening here. One is that the public has a right to observe deliberations and examine documents, except in the case of an issue of individual privacy. The next one says the right of individual privacy is essential to the well-being of a free society and shall not be infringed without the showing of a compelling state interest. So there's this interesting balancing act that you have to conduct yourselves with, is that there's two competing constitutional provisions. One's the right to know, the other is the right to privacy. The right to know means the public has the right to examine documents, observe deliberations, but sometimes there are things that you're gonna have to deal with that deal with a person's individual privacy right. And now we have to decide whose constitutional right are we gonna violate? Are we gonna honor this person's right to privacy and violate the public's right to know? Or are we gonna violate this person's right to privacy and allow the public to participate and observe that? So that is one of those things that you've got to be very clear about as you're trying to balance those two. And I would strongly recommend when you are in the position to have to deal with that, whether it's a records request or whether you're having to close a meeting to do a performance evaluation of staff, that you have good legal counsel guiding you through that process. We can talk about that if you choose. It wasn't on our list, but if you want, we can delve into that and look at that for a little bit if that would help.
One thing I would like you to make clear is this right to privacy rests with the individual.
Correct.
And if they say they don't want a closed meeting, they don't want to claim that right, the
They
board
waive their
does
right
not.
to privacy.
Right, then the board doesn't supersede that, is
Right.
that correct?
The law says that meeting then must be open. Because it's not you can't exercise on behalf of someone else the right to privacy. If I waive it, it's open. Right, yeah, so yeah, and if we want to go down that path, we can do that, and we can actually look at what the law says, go.
All right, so. You brought up executive session for stuff.
Yeah, go ahead.
You're in litigation. I don't care who you're in litigation with, when you're strategizing for this litigation. Does that have to be an open meeting?
So that is another section of, there's two reasons why you can close a meeting. One is to discuss an issue of privacy. The other was to discuss litigation strategy, when having the meeting open would have a detrimental effect on the litigating's position. However, if you're in litigation with another public entity, you cannot close the meeting because public entities have no inherent right to privacy. So if you're fighting with the county or the city and you're locked in a lawsuit, you can't close the meeting, talk strategy. But if you're, the engineering firm or your contractor, construction contractor is in litigation with you about change orders and what's in, what's out, whatever, then that you can close the meeting to talk strategy. If you choose.
Is the press available to be in any of those closed meetings like that? Nobody except the board.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, or the person whose privacy right is being discussed, I would be very concerned if you were to exclude them from that discussion. Because you're talking about me and I have, so we can dip into that one.
I think you did a good job.
You're talking about something regarding a person. Do you have to get it in writing that he has waived his rights to?
Great question. That would be a good example of a local policy. So if we go into this, because you've got an employee sitting right here that, I'll just tell you this. Look, let me ask, what power do you have as an individual board member? You have no power unless you're in a legally meeting and you make a decision in majority rules. That's where your power comes from. So you can't just assign to you, say, we want you to do the performance evaluation because you have no power. That's the board is the one that's doing the performance evaluation. So you would go to the board or the manager and say, look, we're going to do your performance evaluation. As you know, all of our meetings are open to the public, but you may consider your evaluation to be something that would be of a private nature. Would you like to waive your right to privacy and request the meeting to be opened? Because that's our position. All of our meetings are open. And they say, no, I don't want to waive my right to privacy. I want to exercise my right to privacy and request it closed. Great. And it would not be a bad idea to have a form that say, okay, I'm exercising my right to privacy and I sign it. Or a form that says I'm waiving my right to privacy and I request the meeting to be open. And that way it's in writing. So in case there's any, because usually it comes back employment. You don't think there's lawsuits around employment? The more you can have the document that throughout the process, it protects you and it protects them in the process. Go.
So in that case, if he says, no, I want to have it private, how do you handle the minutes for that?
Great question. The whole section of the law that talks about that. So now the legislature, I think as of 2015, has required that meeting minutes of closed sessions or closed portions of the meeting shall be taken. So it doesn't tell you here how to operationalize that. It just says that they're closed. In fact, we can actually read it. If you want to just let's do that. Let's turn to page 5. Actually, that section is on page 6. Top of page 6. This is all part of 2.3, 2.12, number 4. This is what the law says, which is general. And what we recommend is creating some local policies to provide guidance. Here's the thing, I don't want to have to make this up every time, figure out how to do this. So if we can write it down, adopt it, and say that's how we're going to do things, then that's great. We'll just execute it every time. I don't have to think about it each time. So it says, anytime the presiding officer closes a public meeting pursuant to 23202 or 203, the presiding officer shall ensure the minutes taken in compliance with subsection 2, which is just above, are kept of the closed portion meeting. The minutes of the closed portion meeting may not be made available for inspection, right? Made for inspection of the public, except pursuant of a court order. So if the press wanted to see, I want to see those and say, look, it's closed. You're welcome to go to the courts and see and argue the fact that we think that this should be open for whatever compelling reason. And Billings has been great about arguing that certain positions should be are public trust and have less of an expectation of privacy. Right? You know what I'm talking about? It's happened in the last 5 years, and that information should be open, right? So great. As far as we're concerned, we're gonna honor the privacy until the court tells us otherwise, and then we'll make that. All right,
But that's.
how do we operationalize it?
That's also a protection for the district, because, for instance, in the case of an employment issue, if you end up dismissing someone and the person says, no one ever, I mean, that was never mentioned to me. But you get into court and you've got the minutes that prove that it was discussed in some detail. So it really is important that we adhere to that.
When it's required, but it is a protection. So to your question, how do we operationalize it? How does that happen? What we recommend is on your meeting agenda, if you have a closed meeting, the next meeting agenda, just put on there, potential closed executive session for approval of minutes.
Okay.
Then I would not email out those minutes of the executive portion. I don't want that out in the ether. It's too easy to forward or mess up, so I wouldn't email it. I would print them out, put them in a manila envelope, have date, time, place, all that information you'll see in section 2, with each of the persons that were at that meeting there for initials. And then you pass it around at the meeting. They can read them. If they concur with them, they can put their initials on that envelope all the way around, and then we'll adopt them as presented. And then they'll go in that envelope, seal it up, and then I would put it in a safe place that's not gonna be easily accessed, maybe kept with your attorney. Now, if there's something, I'll come back to it. If there's something in those minutes like, that wasn't right, that was wrong, and there's no way to fix the wrong in the minutes without, in the discussion, disclosing what the privacy issue was, then you can go into that executive session, because we noticed it. We let the public know, hey, there may be a chance we might have to fix something that was wrong, that we might have to go in executive session. If it's just, oh, we need a comma here, we need a hyphen there, that doesn't disclose anything. We can correct whatever in the minutes with publicly. But if there's something that has to be discussed that might reveal the privacy issue in order to correct to make an accurate record, then you can close that meeting and take minutes of that. You see where I'm at? You get in that loop. Have that, those minutes corrected, approve them, goes in that safe space, and then have the minutes of that little session go through that same cycle, the next meeting. And hopefully you can do it like a 1 and done or 2 and done, and you don't have to keep having that reoccurring executive session on there. Does that make sense? I'm just looking at you because you're probably one organizing that agenda.
And that was my next question. So if you go into an executive session, like in this case, our board secretary is also a employee. Who takes the minutes then? Because that wouldn't like the employees, like if it was, say, Bo's review or whatever.
Yeah.
And would the board president then have to take the minutes, or would she still be in there as board secretary, even though she's an employee? I know
Right.
it gets kind of.
It does get kind of dicey and complicated. So again, this is where your legal counsel will be helpful to help you navigate it, right? So it might be that we're having a closed meeting, maybe to talk about your performance, and you're his supervisor. So you might be part of that discussion, right? So you would be in there, and given the nature of the conversation, the note taker might be in there as well. It's less clear in your situation because the board secretary is a creation of the board.
Mhm.
It's not a statutory position. Unlike the municipal clerk that says in the law, the municipal clerk attends all meetings of the council. So all meetings being, if we're gonna have a closed session, that they are there taking minutes and that meeting, attending the meeting. So that's where we argue whether they should be in or out. But for you, it doesn't have anything in the law that says whether they should be participating or not. So part of it would it be appropriate for them to be participating and taking minutes or not? And if not, then who on the board should be taking the record of that? And this is that's when things get kind of squirrely. It's like, yeah, those minutes are all screwed up.
Practicality would be,
Yeah.
just use common sense.
Yeah, and again, having that legal counsel there to say, yeah, that would be inappropriate, or yeah, that would be okay. If it's litigation strategy, I don't see a problem having or be part of that. If it's a personnel issue and we're evaluating her supervisor, maybe that would make you and them uncomfortable. So maybe it would be best not to have them in there. So it comes down to that. It depends.
Right.
Now, once this is all done and they get minutes approved and they're in this sealed manila envelope and they're in the safe spot, how long do they have to be retained?
Forever. Yeah, there's no, as of now, there's no expiration date on minutes. So all minutes of all public boards, their retention schedule is perpetuity right now, the legislature, and the format is unclear whether it needs to be written. Most boards will maintain them in a written format as well as storing them electronically.
Could they ever become public, like 50 years later?
It doesn't have any provisions in the law about that yet.
If
And
the
so,
judge, if it
if
gets.
a judge says-
Says so.
kick it out there, yeah.
Well, no, I'm just talking.
But yeah, like,
Which
which is like the federal documents, right, for all the clandestine stuff, they say, yeah, we're gonna put that under lock and key for 50 years.
assassination.
Yeah. Solved all that mystery. Yeah, so they're right now, is what I understand, there's no provision in the state statute that has a termination date to that privacy.
Why? Because they did terminate that.
Yeah, and so, they have those, like the NASA files, all those things are, war files, they all have a date to. And it's really good for history, right, as we're we want to see those records, but not while it's still raw. The scab hasn't healed yet. Let a few generations pass on and then we'll let it open up. All right. So now, oh, wait, did I get where we wanted to go? Okay, we skipped down. Now we go back. Sorry, let's go back to page 1. This is getting to my point. 103, middle of page 1. Each agency shall develop. So you're considered an agency by definition. We didn't put it in here because it's too long, but 23102 defines what an agency is, and it says any board, bureau, commission, so you guys would fall under that as a bill. So each agency shall develop procedures, local policy for permitting and encouraging the public to participate in the agency's decisions that are of significant interest to the public. Well, that's kind of ambiguous. What's significant interest to the public? And I'll tell you this, I don't want to be the one to decide, oh, this is significant for all y'all and this is not. They have an uncanny ability to decide for themselves what's significant. And it may not be the same thing that you're thinking. So my suggestion for ease of operation and not have to make that determination what's significant, what's not, is just anytime you're making a motion, just allow public comment to happen. Or at the beginning of the meeting, allow public comment on the agenda. Just here's your chance, comment on anything. So then you can make decisions throughout the meeting, having already received public comment. This does not preclude you from allowing public comment with other agenda items as necessary. So you've got options there, but the standard is public comment needs to be allowed before you take any action. So a recommendation would be, so what you could do at the beginning of your meeting is very at the beginning, say public comment on the agenda. Okay, so that will cover it. You may still down here, say you got a very controversial issue, right? Increase in water rates or whatever it is. And you got, a room full of angry people. They read something on Facebook, they're all pissed off. Everything's accurate on Facebook, right? So they're here for wild reasons, right? Some crazy thing they read on Facebook, and so they're all pumped up over something, and it's really not the case. Now, just imagine if you were to say, okay, we're gonna allow public comment, and down here on agenda item number, I gotta get a different color. Man, you got me hooked on red today. Here's the controversial issue. If you allow public comment up here, what is that gonna look like? They're all wound up about this. You allow public comment. It's all inaccurate information they read on Facebook. What's that public comment session gonna look like? Screaming session, all inaccurate. You mean we gotta sell our firstborn child? That's just unconstitutional, blah, 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 all this crap, right? So if you allow that to happen here, you're gonna get an earful of crap that is inaccurate and is not helpful. So what you could say is, hey, look, if you've got something to comment on anything on the agenda except agenda item number 3, we'd love to hear it now. But if you want to talk about agenda item number 3, so board chair, this is kind of your script. Please reserve your comments until we get to here, because we'll allow specific comment just for this. Makes sense, right? So now, as soon as they blow here their comment, what do? They leave, get in their truck and drive home. Meanwhile, they never get resolution because they didn't stick around long enough to participate here. Go ahead.
Yeah, the only, like in the city, public comment is at the end of the agenda.
Oh, we're coming to that.
Okay, because to me, the way we do it, public comment, at the beginning of the agenda, there's 11 o'clock at night.
Drop down to letters C on that section. So it says the agenda must include an item allowing public comment on any public matter that is not on the agenda of the meeting and is within the jurisdiction of the agency conducting the meeting. However, the agency may not take action on any matter discussed unless specific notice of that matter is included on an agenda and public comment has been allowed on that matter. So if something comes up, there's two types of public comment. One is public comment on the agenda. That usually happens at the beginning. It is not uncommon for the board to say, now we're gonna allow public comment not on agenda, but within the jurisdiction at the end of the meeting. Now we've done all our business. You got anything else you want to say that's within our jurisdiction? Now's the time to chime in on that, right? So you can have that bookends on your agenda, and what you could do is create a boilerplate agenda for all your meetings and adopt that, and then you just plug in all the stuff that needs to go in and everything else is already set up. You probably have that.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, we got it.
Perfect. All right, so this can happen, or you could move this up here and say, here's your chance, anything on the agenda or not on the agenda, do it all at once, we're done. You can choose, and this is the thing, the law just says these have to happen. This has to happen and this has to happen. You can decide here where to anchor them in your agenda. Now, back to our scenario where we got people showing up and they're all angry. So what I would recommend in that scenario is you'd say, okay, we're gonna have an informational presentation. We're gonna have our engineer or someone from rural water or somebody come in and give a presentation on the water rates and this and that and how we came to this conclusion and all the math and science behind it. Presentation. So what we're doing, hopefully, with that informational presentation is we're dispelling all the crap that was swirling around on Facebook. The people that showed up for the meeting because they thought this was going to happen. They sit through this presentation, it's like, oh, well, that kind of makes sense. Well, that doesn't seem unreasonable. Well, yeah, I can see how that's gonna make a difference. You know, they start getting their head wrapped around what it is you're actually proposing, not what they read on Facebook. So you'll feel the temperature in the room start to go down. Right, so less angry. Then you have Q&A from the board asking questions of your expert for clarification. And if you're a wise board, which all y'all look like you are, you may know the answer, but you want to clarify, you might ask a question that you know the public is still kind of stewing on. And you want to reinforce what the issue is. You mean it's not this and it's not that, it's this other thing? Yes, and then you get a chance to reinforce it again. So we're really hammering in what it is that we're deciding, why we're deciding, and it's all being clear here. And then you allow public comment. And hopefully this public comment is going to be more thoughtful, more relevant, and it's not going to be on all that other crap because you've been able to dispel it in this process. So now you get meaningful, thoughtful public comment, and it might even be, you know, now that I've heard what you're doing, it seems reasonable. And here you're fighting for credibility all the time. You need to be seen as the credible ones. You've got a room full of people because they believe and put more credibility in the faceless, nameless yahoo on Facebook. They're believing them more than they believe you. And that's an issue. So here's your fight to get that credibility back. You need to be seen conducting your meetings thoughtfully, maturely, professionally, to say, look, trust us. We know what we're doing. We have good rationale and reasons for this. We'll have a good, meaningful conversation. Now we want to hear what you have to say. So now we're going to allow the public comment. Then I'm going to use this color. I'm going to go here. I'm going to draw a line here. Now, why am I drawing a line here? Because now the next thing is going to be here. So you're going to have a motion by the board. Second, you're going to do discussion. And then you're going to take action. Now, why the line there? What's significant about that line? Yep. And why is that important? What's the transition? The balance just shifted there. What happened? Yeah, so this is that's supposed to be a public process here. and this is the deliberative process. There's a shift there. This is where you're facilitating this broader conversation with the public. Then we close the public comment, and now it comes to you, right to you as the board. This is why you have delegated to us the responsibility and duty to make a decision on your behalf. We have honored all the expectations we have placed upon ourselves through our constitutional law, making sure that you have an ability to participate in this process. Now that process is over, we're gonna deliberate, we're gonna give our discussion with reasons, our debate with reasons. I am in support of this motion because this is going to do blah, 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 blah. Or I am not in support of this because it's going to do ding, 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 ding. But you should, not required, not something you can necessarily put in a policy, but I think you have a duty to give reasons behind why it is I am supporting or not supporting this motion. So it's clear to these folks what went into it. What bothers them a lot is when they show up at a meeting, very complicated issue, they go through all this process, they spend half an hour, 45 minutes, 2 hours talking to you about it. You make a motion, get a second, crickets, and then you make the decision. And they're thinking, what the heck? What? We've been talking about this and you have nothing to say about it? No rational, no reason. So they're immediately gonna think, what? If you're not having a discussion here about this, learning in public with all of us, then are you having discussions about this somewhere else? Right? So that's, whether that's the reality or not, that's the perception. So managing this perception, managing that credibility, how do we wrestle that back? So I think you should, just out of duty of my role here, taking this position, facilitating this process for the public, provide rationale and reasons why I'm supporting this or not supporting it.
Well, if you're having the public comment before there's an actual motion on the floor.
Yes. And I have a rationale for that, but great question, love it, go ahead.
But if we have this contentious issue with BS, people, well, this means we're gonna dissolve the district and the city's gonna screw us. And if there's not a motion yet, they still have that complex idea. But if there's a motion that clearly says there's nothing to do with the city taking this over, would that help or hurt? Because I understand what you're doing here.
Great question, couple ways you can do it, right? I have preference, but there's a couple ways you can do it. So not a fan, but you can do it. You can have public comment after the motion, right? Which is fine. Not a fan, but it's fine. You can do it that way. My suggestion is that the agenda, as you write out this agenda item here, you're writing it in the form of a motion.
Not stating this.
So you can say discussion on, or a potential action to, or, you know, the purchase of. And so that's what we encourage, because part of the noticing for the public is having the agenda and having on there something that is going to be clear, this is what we plan to do. So then you can state it in your agenda item that this is what we intend to do. Everything you're doing is in support of that, and then we're gonna make the motion. This is what we're going to do.
Wouldn't that already mean the vote is already decided by that point?
Not necessarily, the good thing for you folks is it's generated by the staff. This is our staff recommendation.
But
So
what,
we recommend that you approve this, and then you debate it as a public.
but what you are saying is
But it's not.
the board shouldn't say I'm in favor or not in favor or anything until after public comment. Because you want to discuss the.
Yeah, you wanna hear all of this to inform your decision. You're getting the sense you're not happy with that.
I'm just, so our meetings are already about 4 hours long on any given day. I feel like this would make them even longer because some would get very long-winded discussing with the public if they discuss it prior to then, and then doing the motion, and then they get long-winded with each other and debate long-windedly, so I think it would extend the meetings a little bit.
I don't know how y'all roll. It could make things more efficient as well, that it's very clear about what we're doing, what we're focusing on. Yeah. So so balancing that, are we being efficient as well as we can? This, and again, some of the struggle and the frustration is it's not really designed for your efficiency and your effect, or for your convenience, and so, yeah, it's gonna be kind of a pain in the butt. And for, spoken from the minute taker, man, this is killing me. We've got a 4-hour meeting I gotta make minutes for. I got a lot of hands going on here. Go ahead.
Right, I mentioned to Josh when we prepare our board agenda packet, we have some 104 pages. We have 8 resolutions. We allow 2 hours, 15 minutes per resolution. And 0.5 minutes to read all the documents if they want to. My point here is, if Josh and I want something to go through, it's gotta be clearly written in a positive way.
Yeah.
Outlining on the motion of the features, not just the residents and the customer, but who keeps the customer happy. The help, the team.
Yeah.
You know, our most valuable asset in this facility, not the pipe, not the pump, it's not the building, the paint. You could take all that away. Don't take my team.
Yeah.
With my team, I can rebuild this facility. Not your pipe in the ground, better pumps, okay? The board needs to operate as facilitator to our wet dream, our literally wet dreams. How do they do that? Well, they can't do any better job than we can do outlining the benefit and the feature to Heights Water. Okay, so that's what we try to do. And we should have a mission statement and outline our goals and objectives. They do not exist here.
Yeah.
They gotta be driven by the board.
Shocker that there's so much conflict here. Because we have no focus.
Right.
Because we're fighting amongst ourselves because we have no purpose. We have no mission, we have no direction. It's easy for us then because idle hands will start fussing with process and everything else.
Right.
But if you had, this is where we're headed. We have a strategic plan that is informed by our capital improvement plan. There are certain things we need to get done. We've got to be thinking about this system over the next 50 years because the decisions we make today are going to affect 50 years out. So we've got to be thinking about that. And that might really align the board around purpose. Without purpose, it's easy for it to start, I'm gonna just start picking a fight with you. Because I gotta have purpose somehow. So we're gonna just fight amongst ourselves.
Unfortunately, about half the board right now that is more concerned about consolidation, which is basically merging with the city. And then we have the other half that's concerned about the future and the progress.
Yep.
So we've already got the debate. And it's stuck there.
Yeah.
Cause I don't see anybody swapping one way or the other. It's just a constant battle between them.
Yeah. So talking off the top of my head, it could be the sake, okay, let's take this consolidation thing. Let's debate it and make a decision, and we won't revisit it for another 5 years. Boom. Let's focus on the rest of it.
Mhm.
Right?
that isn't how it works.
That's not.
Why not?
we bring it up every
Because
month.
the law specifies.
Can we just say-
what they do.
We just say, look, we made the decision. We're not talking about this. We're not bringing it up for 5 years. We decided we're putting a pin in it for 5 years, or we decided we're consolidating. Right? But you could be out of order if you bring it up and say, no, we've already decided, asked, answered, we're moving on. So it requires discipline and agreement amongst you of how we're gonna govern ourselves. Right?
But I don't think you understand what the status is. The law says the board can initiate discussions of consolidation, the board initiated with the city.
Yep.
Then the law lays out what you have to look at. And so the city and the district have signed an MOA with an engineering firm to look at those issues, which will be due in July of 26. Is that right?
No, next week.
What's that?
July. When is
June next year, the finish of the report.
in June of 25?
Yeah.
So that's where it's at, but the 3 people from this board meet with 3 people from the city on a monthly basis, and they report back to the board. I mean, that's the process.
Report, we move on. Yeah,
Yeah.
report, we're moving on. There's no need, it's like, because it sounds like there's nothing do right now.
Right.
Report will move on, report will move on until there's something in June, apparently. Now let's talk about it. We have something on the table. Is it gonna work for us or not work for us? But you can be disciplined about saying, look, we don't need to keep fighting over this until there's something to fight over, just to fight. Go ahead.
This, I think we gotta get off, we're away in,
We're getting-
we're playing football and baseball field. Let's cover those,
Okay,
questions.
those other things, because there's Netflix to watch, by golly.
That's right.
And you're burning up my Netflix time.
There's the important
Yeah.
stuff that everybody wants to know about. What's
All right.
gonna happen with consolidation is.
Not yet.
Not in this.
So part of it is be disciplined, make decisions, move on. If you keep bringing it back, you're never gonna get off of, first base. All right.
And then, then, and the public hearing,
Mhm.
we can limit it to 2 or 3 minutes per person,
The public comment.
public
Yeah.
comment. and the city
I-
council, all the
I
public,
would suggest,
We do, we
Yeah.
we limit it to 2 minutes.
But
2 minutes.
I was
So-
referring to the board members getting long-winded.
yeah, and you can also, in your rules of procedure, state that we will allow board members 2 opportunities to speak, but you can't speak a second time until everyone has an opportunity to speak, and you can't speak for more than 3 minutes per time you speak. Boom. Chair in the room?
He's up there.
He's up.
Oh, Doug, you use your gavel, buddy. You hold, we've made a decision how we're gonna govern ourselves. We are either gonna be disciplined on our own, or I'm gonna make you maintain discipline with my gavel. You got 3 minutes, go. 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 Anybody else wanna talk again? Then we'll do another round and then we're done. Is there a motion on the floor? Motion on the floor? Motion on the floor? See no motion on the floor, moving on to the next agenda item. Agenda item number 4. Boom. Let's just get through this meeting. Doug, we are looking at you, buddy, to make sure we're disciplined, following through on how we conduct this meeting. Oh, there he is.
I heard that.
He's left, he's sleeping.
You're muted.
So there's a lot that comes with that job, isn't there, to keep them, keep the group focused. And having those policies are gonna be very helpful to give the authority to the chair to say, look, we agreed on how we're gonna conduct our meetings. If we've made an agreement that we're not gonna call people out, I'm gonna wrap the gavel when you do. That's inappropriate. We're talking about process, not people. Right? So there's a standard that we're gonna conduct ourselves with, and that standard should then be held to the same to the public. In your procedures, you should also have ground rules, not just for how this board operates and the rules that you're gonna conduct yourselves by and hold yourselves accountable to, but also ground rules between the board and the public. I would recommend, just saying for what it's worth, I'm not an attorney, but I would suggest not going less than 3 minutes for public comment for the public. If it goes less than that, there is a potential that the public would push back via a lawsuit, saying that that's not adequate opportunity for me to participate in this process. And then what we don't want to have happen is the courts get involved, because my fear is if the courts get involved with that, they may say, you can't limit public comment. And then it's open mic night every time we have a board meeting. So that's where a lot of seasoned county attorneys are saying, yeah, 3 minutes, we feel pretty safe. 5 minutes, we're great. 2 minutes, we're really gonna, we're on shaky ground that we don't feel like we can defend that very well in court, and we may lose, and then lose that opportunity for all boards all across the state. And then you're the pariah. Around the state's like, whatever.
You need a motion and a second before you have discussion. That's the way we operate.
Yes, that's what I would say, that, and the second being that there's someone else in the room who wants to support that. I may not be in agreement with it. I may argue against it, vote against it, but I at least say that's worthy of discussion.
But if you don't get the second. you
It
move on.
dies, we're moving on.
Yep.
Any second? Seeing no second, we're moving on to the next agenda item, right? You just move that right along and we're not, yeah, okay, all right, so. All right, yeah, Doug, I apologize, we don't have for you our packet,
It's online.
online,
Well, I
maybe,
mean, it's online at your center.
yeah, it's on our website, so I don't, yeah, so. All right, so we need
I'll
to,
get it from one of the others. No problem.
I'll leave a copy for you.
Okay, awesome.
All right, so it says, each agency shall develop procedures, right? So these bylaws or rules of procedure permitting and encouraging the public to participate. The next sentence says the procedures must ensure adequate notice. There's the big hangup. What is adequate notice? So that was the big thing. If we're gonna make our local policies that ensure adequate notice, and that's a vague, ambiguous term. Well, I want to make sure we're honoring the constitutional rights, but the law was unclear, so I can't make my policy to decide, is it 12 hours, 24, 48, 72, what is it? I don't know. And what was happening all over the state is the county may adopt 72 hours, the city might adopt 24, a board might say 48, we're all over the board. So the press doesn't know what's going on. I'm running around here and there, can't keep track. So city and county attorneys got together and they proposed a request to the attorney general, give us an opinion. They came back with an opinion in 1989 saying what would be considered adequate notice would be 48 hours. And that amount of time should increase with the relative importance of the decision being made. Now, that second part, typically, if you're making an important decision, it's not showing up at one meeting. It's not a one and done. It's like, we've talked about it for 6 months. And so that's usually the people have been warned for 6 months before it goes on. Does that make sense?
Is adequate, does that count Saturday and Sunday or?
It doesn't say, right? So that's a great question. It doesn't differentiate. It just says 48 hours before the meeting. So if you want to have a meeting Monday morning, you post it Friday night at 5 o'clock. That might, if that's the 48 hours. So you could do that.
Okay.
Now, just what does that do for the public's trust? Right? So you got it. There is going to be impact of all those things. So just make a policy saying if we're going to have a Monday morning meeting, we're going to notice it by Thursday at 5. If it's going to be a Tuesday meeting, we'll do it by Friday at 5 or what, just answer those questions for yourselves, but ensure that from notice to the end, it's going to at least be 48. It could be longer and that's up to you, but it's got to be at least 48. We've had some jurisdictions put a bigger expectation by saying we're going to have all of our meetings, noticed a week in advance. It's like, well, that's not helpful. We don't really know what's going on a week in advance. So,
The problem is the billing and all.
oh, it's a mess. So 48. If you cover that, then you'll be fine. And then to answer some of those questions about weekends, you can then say, what's our standard? And those rules of procedures really setting the rules, right? If you've ever tried to play Monopoly, when someone's just making up the rules as you go along, right? So you don't want to have the public feel like that. So here's how we're going to conduct business, hold us accountable to it. You can expect it this way every time, all the time. If you were just operating with norms and traditions, it could be flexible. Right, and we don't want that. And again, we don't want you to have to use up a lot of energy and time trying to find the flexibility in there. Write it down, execute it, and then you have your energy and bandwidth focused on doing the consolidation or whatever else. That's our focus. All right, so ambiguous term, 48 hours. So the Attorney General is going to be a source. We can go to the Attorney General for an opinion. So we get an opinion from the Attorney General to give clarity for the law when the law is ambiguous, when you're trying to create your local policies, or through a lawsuit, which was an option. Someone could have said, I think adequate notice is 12 hours. So they put it out there 12 hours and something, I say, that ain't adequate. 12 hours is not nearly enough. And they say, well, tough, that's what it is. And it just says adequate and that's what we feel. So you'd say, all right, well, I'm going to sue you. Right, which means that, suing is not a big deal because that's how the system is designed. Somehow we have to go to the judicial branch to have them solve some of these problems. That's why they exist. So you go to the judicial branch and say, well, this is how we interpret it. This is our logic and rationale. And you and your attorney say, well, this is what we think is important. This is how the public is perceiving this, blah, blah, blah. And then the judge will determine. Right, and that's one of those issues on the public comment. We don't want the judge in that mix. Right now, we feel like we can limit debate because it doesn't say we can't, and we're going to do it until they say we can't. But we don't want to ask the question because we don't want to know what the answer is. So we just keep doing it. Does that make sense? But we're going to be very generous about that time because we don't want someone to come back and say, yeah, you screwed me on that. All right.
But you feel that a week is too much?
Yeah, I would say it's
more than enough.
It's more than enough. 48 hours is the standard, and I would keep it at 48 hours and then give those exceptions. If you're gonna have a hearing, hearings are different than public meetings. Hearings have different standards. That you'll find the rules for hearings on page public meetings require public hearing, the top of page 4, 4131, 714131 has. And there's going to be a longer noticing time and a different way in which you conduct a hearing than a public meeting. So 48 hours for a public meeting, usually it's a longer time for noticing, and you got to put it in the paper and you have to have all that stuff.
Right. Yeah, our current is a week.
Yeah. That's our current policy,
That's
yeah.
our current policy.
So, yeah, then that could be a debate, it's like, is that working for us, we all happy with it, or is it creating problems, and then we can decide to do something different, if that's what the.
Set up it in a week with amendment 48 hours before. So the week is for the convenience of the board.
So you're-
There's a lot of stuff that comes up
Yeah.
and we haven't got jobs too.
Yeah.
So we need some extra time to study it. We can get back to them.
So it could be
The
that-
final has to be
Yeah,
48 hours.
could be that the local policy is that we're gonna send out the board packet a week ahead of time, those things that we know are gonna be in there, just for you to start grinding on it, and then we'll finalize things and put the actual agenda out. That's all at your discretion, right? Whatever works for you, that would be your local policy.
What would you recommend where we have as many board members as we have employees? Currently, we stipulate, is it 5 working days?
Supposed to.
Five working days, so in our case, it's next Wednesday, so there is a weekend. So we sent out the draft agenda today, 104 pages for next Wednesday.
Yeah.
So that gives us 3 weeks to come up with the next agenda.
Yeah, so it could be a resource issue, and so part of it is just how we balance all this.
Well, it's people,
Yeah.
priority, what does our board want us to do, write agendas? And
There's a cost for everything.
And trust me, I spent very little time in the field, if any.
Yeah,
I'm an administrative chief here.
Yeah.
So, what's the cost effective and how do we best serve Heights Water District?
Yeah.
And, like I said, we had 104, and I just made a tabulation because of the meeting. If we allow us 2 hours for this meeting, which is the new regulation, we allow less than 1 minute to read the documents, and we allow 15 minutes for each resolution. Now statistically, we have never been able to do that, so right off the gate, you know, you're not gonna have a 2-hour meeting.
so you're reading out loud during the meeting that,
No,
okay, but
there's no way you can do it.
No, I was
That's
just-
why they need 5 days
yeah,
to read
to
this
read and
material.
process, respond with questions back and forth, yeah.
So the more agenda item, of course, the more preparation we need. So our function, Josh and my function, is to provide the information so our board can take a better decision. So it's a oodles of information.
Yep.
Backup information, and a lot of it, they really don't need, but should they need it? Because we get with insurance, retirement programs, so there's an awful lot
Yeah.
of documents.
Yeah.
And it affects the cost, which is one of their main issue is we gotta balance the budget and we have a budget to maintain, that sort of thing. So my goal in life is to educate our board on these decisions or proposed decisions so they can make better decisions. So our skill set is more of bringing the information, but also prod them along. So our resolutions are written in a positive manner. This is really what we want, okay?
Yep.
And that's, I think, how it's supposed to be, to guide them into these decisions that we want. It's nothing that we're hoping for, nothing we're wishing. This is really it. This is what we want you guys to do. So it behooves us to create all these documents and information that is required to make an intelligent
Informed
decision.
decision, yeah.
So how many resolutions, how many hours should you allow for a monthly board meeting? Because it's becoming a lot for me.
Yeah.
And this is not really the job I was looking for, okay? So I feel that a lot of my time is babysitting the board, okay?
In a
But
good
you
way.
guys, yeah, no,
Yeah.
my job is to give them the information. But they want a lot of information.
Yeah.
Okay, we're working on a lot of subject. Mission statement, what is it we're supposed to do? What is we're doing? what is the difference? What is the difference? What are we supposed to do? What are we doing? Okay, what skill set is required to run this facility? And that needs to be evaluated. Are we actually working on a better tomorrow? And how are we doing that? So we have a number of issues and we want to bring forward, Joshua, the best information for the board meeting so they can make decision that advances our cause and serve Heights Water. How is this, what is the benefit and feature of these resolutions that we're doing? Is it gonna advance it, or is it gonna make us more cost effective and all that sort of thing? So we gotta allow X number of hours every month to work towards those goals. And each year, the board should outline those goals. What are we shooting for? How do we know when we get there? How do we know when we get there? How do we measure our effectiveness as a board, you know? The amount of money we have in the bank, you know? The water, the number of connections that rose less today, less than 1.5% a year for the last 5 years. How do we evaluate it? The non-revenue water, are you concerned? You know how much money we lose every month on non-revenue, 40, 50,000 dollars. So that's the direction I'm looking from the board. How do you do that? Well, you set up the mission statements. What is why did God put us here? To serve Heights Water. And to me, going back to my original thought here about the board meeting, what is essential that we bring up each board meeting? Okay, is it the dollar and cents? Yeah. Is it the people we serve? They're connected. The better we serve them, the more money we will. Focus on the money, you'll count pennies. Yeah. So evaluating the value of 104-page agenda and some 8 resolution that we're going to pass in 2 hours. I don't know if that is an effective way of doing it. So you are addressing some of my concern on your list here that we really haven't tackled yet. So I don't know if I made myself clear.
Well, so what I'm hearing too is my expectation is under your leadership as district manager.
Yeah.
You're trying to bring the board from one place to another. So there's a journey that you have to take them through, and there's probably a lot of work right now that has to happen in order to get yourselves lined out to where you'll find that efficiency moving forward. There's a lot of that initial stability, creating these processes and policies, vision, mission statement, all those things. And once that happens, then you can really tighten things up, and then those agendas may be less complicated and less long. Because we've already
They
got
just find a new one,
They
new
find,
problem,
we'll
new
find
issue,
new ones.
some come up.
The problem,
something else comes up.
Yeah,
the problem is, 3 district managers. The district manager now spends all his time babysitting this board rather than getting to the business of the district.
Yeah.
Because of all the resolutions we have and all the questions that are out there that, to me, we keep repeating and repeating and repeating them. But the problem is our district manager gets paid $bucks to babysit us. You know, because the same resolutions keep coming up over and over and over.
yeah,
I know this
that's
is
a
the
you
way.
thing.
Yeah.
That's a you thing,
Yeah, I
right? If
know.
you want to keep recycling these things, that's on you, right? It's either we've made the decision, we're moving on. If you want to bring it back up again, why are we bringing it back up again? Because we already made the decision. Is there something so part of that is your own discipline as a board. Part of it too is deciding what's the altitude that we should be operating as a board. Are we too down in the weeds as a board that you have competent staff and So those, some of those policies should be thinking, how do we empower the staff to make decisions that we don't have to micromanage the day-to-day operations? That's why you have staff to do the day-to-day operations. You're looking at that high altitude, what needs to be done. See, the city of Billings, what, 120,000 people live here. They have 10 city council members and a mayor. They're not doing operation stuff. They've got nearly 1,000 employees. They've got a city manager and a whole infrastructure that's doing the day-to-day operations. They're passing those big picture ideas, holding someone accountable for delivering on that. Right? And if it's not happening how you want it, have that conversation. But to micromanage the process is maybe more than what needs to happen. And maybe that's hopefully what you're trying to do is how do we establish the altitude for the board
Well,
where you're at your, where
I'm
you need
used
to
to
be.
the private sector, so I'm at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
And the board members have been very tolerant, there's a lot of stuff I screwed up here. And I'm learning, and that's why
Getting it figured out.
this session is very, very good. And I think we're gaining, and we really do. In April, we have a more cohesive team. And I think the board members are a lot more effective than they used to be here. And I can see that we are making progress. So a lot of this stuff is good, okay? But you can do a lot of good stuff and miss some opportunities. And I think it can be a lot more effective. And I have the bylaws here, which shows the responsibility of the board and the general manager. And one is operation and the other one is oversight, financial mainly. But we as a staff, we bring proposals to the board to nix or approve, not to work alongside us to make sure it's done right.
Yeah.
You know, there's a big difference there. So that consumes a lot of my time and their time.
Over time, it's gonna get better.
Yeah.
There's a lot of big issues here that have been brewing for a long time. And it just takes time and education for the board to work through it all. It will get better. I'm on a credit union board and we're down to 45 minutes for a monthly meeting. We just breeze through it because we're educated.
Yeah.
We've got the policies, our policy book is, you know.
Provides that guidance, yeah.
Can I ask you how long all the people have been on the board?
I've been 33 years,
On the board?
yeah.
And is it similar like across the board?
There's others that are probably 15, 10.
And I think that's the only issue here is it rotates so often because of the elected members.
Yeah.
So we're constantly redoing this
Yep.
every few years
Well,
with new people.
hopefully. Whereas, when you have those local policies, right, unless there's a reason why we need to bring that back up again, we've made the decision, we've made a policy, we're following the policy. Unless the majority, 4 of us all said, yeah, let's revisit it, we get a new person on the board, it's like, well, I don't like this, no, sorry, next. Unless there's 4 of us that say, I don't like it, then let's revisit it. So part of it is, you gotta just be disciplined as a board that unless it's really out of whack, we've made a policy, we're gonna follow our policy, and let's move on. So we're plowing new ground, cultivating what's been in the past. How long has this board been around? Since
1958.
So 1958. What's the chances of it going away? I don't know, depends on what the consolidation looks like. But like, the point is that that service isn't going away. How it's gonna be delivered might change over time, but that service isn't going away. So you're building something that's gonna be here for a long time. It's been here for a long time and it'll continue being here for a long time. You're just occupying the seat for this amount of time. For 4, 6, 8, 10 years. And then you'll cycle off, someone else will be on here. You're building a legacy. You've got to be thinking about what's that next 30, 50 years. I don't want to burden a future generation because we dropped the ball here. But yet I don't want to also burden this current generation because we screwed up and that's now going to cost a whole lot of money for us today, you know, for something that happened in the past or whatever it is. So I've got a whole presentation that talks about good policy. We can maybe visit that some other time, or I can pull it up and we can look at it real quick. But I hear what you're saying. and I think it sounds to me like, and I think what you're getting at is it's gonna take a while for the things to settle out. And then you can kind of get to a point when you get these big things settled, operate from that basis of, we've settled it, we're not gonna keep revisiting it. Right? We've made the decision, we're moving on. We can't keep hashing it and whining about, hey, I lost this, I lost it, I wanna keep bringing it up. No. So Doug? Asked and answered. We have talked about it. You know, unless that's in the form of a motion. Is it a motion? Is there a second? No second. We're moving on. We're not gonna sit and entertain, you know, crying in the grapes over this. We made the decision. It's a democracy, the majority rules. So part of it is like, okay, all right. It's, you know, if $100 isn't enough, then maybe someone else thinks it's fine, I'll do it. Or it's not about them. You know, if it's not working for you, you don't have to be here, right? So, not bringing it up, but that's.
Well, that's the real
Yeah.
truth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I
Yeah.
mean, it's really, because it's very frustrating on our end that,
Yep.
you know,
Yeah.
Legal
I know
meeting.
what you're
Yeah, let's
saying.
keep
I know
it
what you're saying.
Legal meetings.
Legal meetings. You ready for this?
Yep.
6 things. This is a quiz. It's like trivia night at the pub. What 6 things have to happen in order for your meeting to be considered legal? All right, so what do we got? Throw them out there.
Public notice.
So we need notice.
Minutes,
Agenda.
Quorum.
Agenda. Quorum. We're getting there. It's 4 out of 6. One more. We just talked a lot about it. It's on that sheet over there.
Well, the information that the board is using to make a decision has to be part of the public notice.
Well, yeah, so the notice part, now the law says it's going to be your agenda.
But the agenda can't just say what the topic is. It also has to include the background information and the,
Law doesn't say that.
well,
That's up to you. If we feel that's important, then that's what we should do. But that's a local decision. It just says that this agenda needs to, it doesn't say the packet, it says the agenda needs to be available. Now, the packet should be available and put it on your website, just, there it is.
but like in the Barbara Wright lawsuit, one Excel sheet that was developed by a trustee on public information that was in the packet was not provided to the public at the meeting, and the Supreme Court overturned the decision. And required the district to pay Barbara Wright's legal fees, so it cost the
Yeah.
district about $500,000. And really taught most government entities that you need to have that information, all information that you're making the decision on in that packet available to the public.
So you gotta decide then, because I'll just say, the law says you need to provide, or you notice the agenda. And the AG says 48 hours. It doesn't say the packet. Now, I would certainly, I think it's a good practice, make sure the whole meeting packet is made available. Post it online, so it's what you have is what they have. It's make it so transparent, it's freaking boring. Right? Don't give them an excuse to say, oh, you're trying to hide something. Just put it all out there.
But that's
Make
what-
it boring.
mean you have to hold a special meeting 2 days later because information that came up the day of the meeting wasn't in the agenda packet. You can still address that topic.
Well, yes, let's talk about that, how that fits within the structure. So the last one, look in your page 5. 23203, the top third. It says a meeting. Is it right? Is that the right one? No, 23202. Used in this part of meeting means the convening of a quorum of the constituent members. So we got that up there, quorum of the membership. Blah, 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 there we go. Public agency, whether corporal or by means of electronic equipment. Corporal being what? In person, right? Either connected in person or electronically. So emails, text messages, phone calls, all those things could, Zoom could create a meeting. Some of which could be legal because you've done all these things, some of which would be illegal because you can't do these things. So an email stream, the public can't observe your deliberations if you're communicating about a topic over email. So you gotta be very careful about that. And then it says,
So they wouldn't be a legal part of the legal meeting then if there was email?
if you're just, so the next part, to answer your question is to hear, anytime you're hearing, discuss, that's supposed to be an S, a D, or act. Apologize for my sloppiness, it's been a long day. So if you have a quorum that is either communicated electronically or in person, you're hearing something within your jurisdiction, discussing something in your jurisdiction, or acting on something in your jurisdiction, that's a meeting. So this is happening, or this is happening in this capacity, all these other things need to be in place. So if you create that on that email stream that you say, hey, we're meeting Thursday night at 6 o'clock. Someone responds back, says, yeah, I see on the agenda, we're talking about X, Y, Z. I was talking to Bubba down on Main Street. He said we ought to do this. This is what I think we ought to do. And now with an email stream, we're discussing something in your jurisdiction. Then you shift it over from something that would be considered ministerial. We're gonna have a meeting Thursday night at 6 o'clock, right? That's ministerial. You can do that as a reply all. But once you start discussing something, or, you know, I heard this, I'm discussing it, now we've shifted over into that meeting space that needs to have notice and minutes and all those other things. So you just gotta be careful that we, in our electronic communication, we don't create an environment that the public doesn't have an opportunity to observe and participate in the comments. So then the other part is if we're not on the agenda, and this is kind of what it was saying here, that we had on page 1, is on letter C, on 23103, letter C, second paragraph. However, the agency may not take action on any matter discussed unless the specific notice of that matter is included on the agenda and public comment's been allowed. So the question is, if something comes up, right, can we discuss it? Is it, so I would just be very careful about introducing and getting deep into some sort of a discussion about things that the public hasn't had an opportunity to be noticed about. Right, but it may be something, well, is this something we need to talk about? Should it go on a future meeting? Is it, you know, so that, I don't have a problem with trying to get our head wrapped around this issue. But maybe not getting it to resolution and then say, okay, now let's put on a future meeting. Does that make a nuance difference for you? Go ahead.
Yeah, I would say like the specific instance I had in my mind was a couple months ago, we had the consolidation MOA on the agenda, but the MOA was not included in the agenda packet. So for fear of some legal backlash, the board decided not to act on an agenda item and hold a separate meeting. But what I'm hearing is that it was on the agenda, even though that MOA, because it came in later.
Yeah.
It still could have been acted on.
Yeah, so it was noticed that the public noticed that we were going to deal with this, and so. And it's at your discretion. Do we feel like this is too quick or not? Do we want to spend more time looking at it? You know, but it's at your discretion. But having it noticed to the public on the agenda that this is what we're going to be hearing, discussing, or acting on.
Right, even though there might not be a specific supporting document for that agenda item.
Yeah, you're not going to act on it unless you have it. And so, you know, it's at your discretion. If you think like, yeah, we think this is okay. If you think that there's a risk that people are going to push back on it, maybe, you know, out of caution, let's bring it up another time, or let the chips fall where they may. Let them, you know, if they don't feel like that was, you know, appropriately done, let's go to court and decide it. Yeah.
But why go to court when you can have another meeting 2 days later?
Yeah, then, again, your discretion. Not saying right or wrong, you guys gotta figure that stuff out.
So on a quorum. Top one.
Oh, yeah, court, yes.
Okay, so if you have a 6-member board,
Yep, I'm with you.
what's a quorum?
A majority plus 1.
So you need 4.
Now, what if you're out of town?
Then you got a 5-member board,
And then it's gonna be what?
3.
Yes, depending on what your rules say. Or, sometimes in the law, it'll say a majority of the board constitutes a quorum. So if you're gone, and the law says a majority of the board, if you're gone, it's still going to be 4. So I don't remember if yours, because some of them are specific, some of them it's generic.
That doesn't fall under the MCA then?
That's what I'm saying. So in the MCA, we can look it up real quick. You have it or no?
That's minimum 3 board members.
No, that's.
Oh,
That's because every other board in the state is 5.
Yeah, so if they were established as a 5-member board, that would be the case. So,
Yeah, in our bylaws, it doesn't say how many board members.
But the law says 6.
This is.
The law says-
So your board,
1342 somewhere. I know
yeah,
that.
so your board was established by the county. By a resolution that defined your framework. And in accordance to 13,
23, somewhere there.
I guess the question would be because right now we have 7, the end of the month, we'll have 6.
because someone's resigning.
No,
Because
because I was appointed through December by the county and they illegally removed me. And the judge put me back on, or would have put me back on, but
However,
they did a settlement.
It is, but
But then that seat goes away,
it goes
down to 6.
Right.
So
Okay.
we will have 6 people, but say
Okay,
Tom and Frank decide to tell the board, hey, we're done. So now we have 4
yeah.
people and 2 vacant seats.
Love it.
The quorum would be 3.
So when there's a
Three.
vacancy versus I'm on vacation. I'm on vacation, the quorum size stays the same. If there's a vacancy, I can't count someone that doesn't exist. So if we have a 6-member board, 2 resign, then now it's, so 6 not vacant 4, so then 3 would be the quorum until, and then you have like 30 days to get people back on the board to fill it out.
There is no
There isn't,
time
but
limit.
that's where your policies can say, we're gonna put a timeline, 30 days, we wanna get this thing going.
But the
Find some
statute
other
does have some language, so if you get down below a quorum of the legal law, then the county can appoint up to that quorum level.
Mm-mm.
And then that existing quorum can appoint the remainder of the, I mean, that is. an
When it gets down to 0, when you all resign.
No, even if they're down to 1 again.
Yeah, I understood the law, that's when you all resign, the county is responsible for starting it, and then you've gotta finish it out.
Not when it's below a quarter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Like
so.
you said, if you resign, you can't count a vote that doesn't exist.
So if you're on electronically, you have to be heard and seen to
What does it
vote
matter?
in a meeting.
Not necessarily, so if you're gonna have,
Right
it,
now.
yeah, so if you're gonna have an electronic meeting, there's no statutory standard of defining what a meeting would be electronically. So part of it's gonna be, what is the standard we wanna have? If you wanna do, so like for years, the FWP's Wildlife Commission, their commission, they would have a call-in number. Because they'd meet in Helena, but you could call in from all over the state, and it was just all over a conference call. And so you could participate, and that the chair would say, okay, does anybody on the phone have a comment? And then they try to manage, everybody talking over each other and try to get everybody through. Now, the technology's gotten such that we can do it like this with Zoom. So you can set your own standard, saying, if we're gonna have an electronic meeting, here's the standard of expectation for our board and for future boards. And they can change if they want, but we want to have it on a Zoom, people can call in, we'll manage it this way. So that could be I wouldn't spend time writing it, I would ask around who's got a good policy on how to manage these online meetings. But now with Zoom, you can do it that way. And
Yeah, but
that's a
So
standard.
like if Doug is gone and he's on there, but he disappears, Evelyn wouldn't work, but another guy could come and say, I vote yes,
Proxy
but we
voting.
didn't
Yeah.
see Doug.
Yeah,
So
so that could be your standard.
it could be anybody throwing
Right.
that vote in there unless you can see them actually making
Actually,
it.
there's
And that can-
there's an AG opinion though that says you have to be visible.
I haven't seen it.
I have, and I provided it to the district.
Love to see it. I'd love to see
That's
it.
our policy.
That's your
Way-
policy, so that's our standard.
Visible.
Because they haven't put any expectations right now that we have seen in all of our, because when the pandemic hit, we presented to the Attorney General all the legal framework for hosting online meetings in the shutdown, where people can't come out. And because of that law that says that we can have it electronically, and all the subsequent AG and Supreme Court case notes, we were able to compile all that, none of which we saw about any standards, just that you can do it. So now it's up to you to decide, do we want to have that level of security, if you will, that we want to know who's making that vote. So it could be the standard for your board, that I want to see the whites of your eyes in a meeting. Some boards say, we will not connect anybody online. Either you're in person or not, or you're not participating. You can say, we're gonna participate, you can call on the phone, you can do it. You decide how you wanna do that. That's a local policy.
There's no thing that you gotta see the whites of your eyes. You can actually vote by
Tell me.
voicemail and say, I vote yay,
But
without seeing the vote or the guy raising his hand.
so
Okay,
you,
correct.
you can't do proxy voting and you can't do online voting. You know, why would I say, so you just can't say, how do all y'all feel about this? Just say yay or nay on an email.
Okay.
Why can't we do that? Why am I saying you can't do that?
No public notice. I mean,
Yeah, so public notice be one.
your behavior, I mean, as elected officials, your rationale and your vote is public.
Yeah.
So if the public can't see your vote, you're not participating, you're not providing adequate.
Yeah, so part of it is that the public has the opportunity to participate in that process. So having an online vote, they haven't had a chance to be a part of that process. So it's not a thing to be able to do. So nonprofits, if you're a nonprofit, 501c3, you can write that in your bylaws saying, we'll do proxy voting where I'm gonna give you my vote, can they at the meeting? You got my vote, my vote's yes, and whatever they come up with. We don't do that in the public world because the public has an opportunity to participate. They can weigh in and it might sway what you have to say. What you're saying to the public, when I give you my vote because I can't be there, I've already made my decision up and I don't care what the public says. That would be, by principle, inconsistent with the.
But what I'm
the
saying is,
Constitution.
if we have somebody on Zoom, camera doesn't work, and he can listen, and he votes, he can vote because we recognize his voice.
If that's how you want to do that, then yeah, so that's up to you to decide what's our limits for allowing that to happen, and that's for your discretion.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't remember what we're looking at here. I pulled it up, but okay. Getting back to this.
You were looking up how the quorum's determined.
Okay.
And I think.
For the, yeah, composition.
Majority plus
It
one.
says it.
So typically it's the majority plus one, and then the other question is, does it include the,
Present.
yeah, is it a majority of the board, which is different than the majority of those present?
If it says to do business, nothing can pass without the
Yeah.
majority of the full.
So if it says the majority of the board, then if you're down, if it's a 6-member board to quit, you still need to get the majority of the board, which would be 4 votes in order to go yes. You've got 4 members left, they all have to concur. It won't be a vote of 3 out of 4, it's gonna be the majority of the board. And so,
Well, they all have to concur.
right.
Okay.
So some of that, you can just say, that's a standard that we would like to see. The law may or may not meet that standard. If it doesn't, it's gonna be less than that. And so that would be the highest standard. You can adopt that as your own policy and just say, that's how we roll. Right? We're gonna put that on ourselves. Oops. Hopefully that made sense. County Water or Sewer District 22. I want to go to 20,
It's 22.
is it, it's gonna be 20, this is the,
274,
okay, let's.
where it says the requires one of the board to take action.
Standing before conduct of business. Okay, look at you. Okay, I'll let you. Go ahead.
Question, when we're gonna be down to 6 members on a board. There's gonna be a ton of ties.
Ton of what?
That,
Five.
Ties, oh, ties, yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
there's gonna be ties and a lot of ties.
Yep.
It's very difficult to conduct business.
Yeah. Just call me, I'll break it for you. I'll be your tie for hire. Yeah, tie for hire. A majority of the board constitutes a quorum for the transaction of business. So in order to transact business, you need a majority of the board. So if you follow the local, that could be a problem. The board may act only by ordinance and resolution. A resolution being any motion that you make could be considered a resolution. It doesn't necessarily have to be written down in the formal whereas, therefore be resolved. The definitions for resolution in this part of the code is anytime you resolve to do something. So the motion is saying we resolve to do this or act in this way. So that, all right, okay. So
So you don't need a written resolution for every single motion.
no. Yeah.
No, my question,
But whatever decision you're making, whatever motion that is, we're resolving to do it. And some things,
Exactly.
so what I say with resolutions, there's a big R and a little r. The big R is that written resolution that goes into a resolution book, we're gonna keep in this way, and it's very clear. Whereas these are all the reasons, therefore, we're gonna act in this way. And there may be times where we say, yeah, that requires, that's of a level that we wanna have that written. And then there's the little r's, like I move that we, do this, do that, just some small stuff is that we're resolving to do something, but it doesn't need to be written up in that formal resolution. And I don't know if that saves a lot of energy on your part, but you can just spell out to the board saying, here's what we're seeking from you as the staff, and here's our recommendation. If you watch like City of we'll just pick Great Falls. They'll go through the agenda item, the mayor then asks for the staff report. The staff will go through and explain, this is what we did, this is what we talked to, this is what we organized, this blah, 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 all the stuff. And they say, it is our recommendation that you approve X, Y, Z, or it's our recommendation that you deny or not approve X, Y, Z. And that's their staff recommendation. And then it's kicked over to the council, and then they'll take up the thing, they'll make the resolution. I move that we do something, they debate it, talk about it, discuss it, ask questions, and then they'll act, either we approve it or they deny it, which means it goes away. So they don't make a motion that we don't do something. All your motions are in the affirmative, kind of like what you were saying before. It's all in the affirmative. We move to do something. If we don't want to do it, you vote no. Rather than saying, I move that we don't do something. And that's because then we say yes to not doing it, are we doing, so it gets very confusing. So everything's in
You
the
got a
affirmative.
6-member board and you're gonna have a tie. Then-
Oh, yeah. Then it
Then
just
you,
dies.
then you make the negative vote.
Yeah.
If you sit and figure out where everybody's gonna vote, you know it's gonna be a tie, then it passes.
Yeah.
The positive passes, the negative fails.
Yeah, so I would just say on those, whenever you get that tie, it's gonna be, it dies because there's no majority, the majority is gonna carry the day. Do you have a question, or
so
we'll get you next?
if this is a meeting and it will require minutes because not notice to the public, we have a quorum present, correct?
Or is
This here?
the training session?
So what we recommend, is when you're having trainings like this, that you still notice to the public that a quorum of the board will be participating in a training from the local government center, this night, date, time, all that stuff. No public business will be discussed, no action will be taken. And so then we just talk about the training stuff and not delve into the policy work of the board, but we keep it as training. So what you're basically informing the public that we know that you know that we're hanging out as a quorum, but we're not talking about your business, we're just participating. Rather than not noticing it at all, and then someone walks by and says, hey, what's going on? There must be a board meeting, it wasn't noticed, and now your trust level goes. Beep, 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 beep,
It's
beep.
on Facebook. and-
Everything's on Facebook.
Isn't it great if we know that any?
Yeah, and I think that's great. And I'd rather do it than not.
So we met with our engineering firm to get the specifics of the task. We have them compiled those. We noticed it. There was no business taking place.
Yep.
We don't need business. I mean, it was an informal meeting. Just like this is.
So-
an informal
So
meeting.
what you're doing at that meeting is there is a quorum and you're hearing something within your jurisdiction, which would then trigger all these other things.
All right, so
So that
isn't
becomes a
this
local meeting.
hearing things?
No, we're talking process. Hearing things would be within your jurisdiction to make, where you have discretion over what you should or shouldn't do. We're talking more about the process of governing, rather than saying how or what we're going to do. We're
But
talking about how we're
But
gonna
all we did was listen to the engineering.
So-
We didn't
Yeah.
discuss or
We-
ask.
So we just.
And that's- That's the key, is the or. If it said and, then you could, it would require all three of those things to happen in order to qualify as a meeting, but the legislature chose or, which means any one of them independently could qualify as a meeting. Is this making sense? I bet your nonprofit head is just exploding. Your private world is like, ooh, this is not.
Well, not.
Yeah, so whenever you're conducting business, or you're hearing, or, any of that stuff, just notice it. Bore them with noticing.
Yeah, but the minutes, that's
Yeah.
the budget. You don't have to do the minutes.
I don't have to.
Yeah, you just say a report given by the
Okay.
engineering firm, you know, these are the main topics covered, and that, you know, that was it.
Okay, all right.
It
but no
it doesn't have to
minutes
be, and we'll cover minutes in just a second, because I think that was on the meeting, the list, minutes,
Yeah.
but we'll cover it anyway.
Well, I mean, we didn't truly notice this meeting. We put up a link to the Zoom, but we didn't put up what the purpose of the meeting was. And, you know, so it would be better to have a brief agenda that stated that.
Belt and suspenders, yeah.
But for the minutes, it'd be great. I mean, this is on your website to download it and put it out, because the minutes are not only for the public, they're for the board. And so it's helpful if we have a place to find the information. We remember that you came in, remember the date. I mean, I do have a huge file of open record stuff, and I got that file. But most people don't. So just to put this up as minutes, this was what was discussed essentially.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
and then you're.
And all that's discretionary, right?
Yeah.
How do you want to conduct your business? And there's a minimum. And then there's everything above that. And so you'll never be penalized for doing something beyond that. But if you do anything less than the minimum, they'll slap you around.
Right.
So just knowing where that floor is and making sure that, right, nothing wrong, what you're describing, nothing wrong with that.
And,
Not
and the
required,
goal
but
is
nothing wrong.
not to do the minimum. The goal
Yeah.
is to be useful and would be useful to
Yeah.
have this accessible to the board.
As long as the entire board agrees on that.
And that's a discussion of the
Well,
board. You gotta decide what that
right.
is, right? You're talking about what your value is, but it's shared by 6 other people.
I understand that.
And
but I
that's where the
mean, I'm
debate
just
comes
saying,
in and majority rules makes that decision. That's the
people are
governing
panicked
process.
about doing the minutes, but this would be helpful.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, you're not wrong, right? You're not wrong, but it comes down to what do we wanna do? What's our standard? Write it in a policy, and then we don't have to keep having this conversation. We've decided how these meetings will be conducted. We've decided what our minimum is gonna be, which is probably gonna be more than the minimum of the law. But at least you're gonna be covering the law. If that makes sense. And then once you've made the decision, it's what it is. Go.
My question's on the resolution, so you say big R versus little. R. Do the resolutions have to be pre-written and put in like an agenda packet before the meeting? Or if the board decides to move on something and they make a motion to resolve to do whatever, can you write the resolution post-meeting?
Oh, interesting. You could,
Because I
go
guess for me, if you write out the resolution beforehand, it gives that appearance of your mind is already made up. Whereas if you have the discussion and then the board makes the motion, passes the resolution after the discussion, after the public comment, then it seems more,
it's okay to have your mind made up because it's coming from the staff side.
it's the
It's coming from the
recommendation.
executive side. This is what we're,
I mean, that's what
and they
we're
can
trying to do.
modify. Do their,
Also clear to the board what is it we're trying to do.
Yeah.
So, we're trying to make it as easy as possible to make a decision and a well-informed decision with a backup material. But, you know,
so I hear what you're saying too. If I might just jump in here.
yeah,
I'll try-
we have done both stuff.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, because it's the board's preference to have them written before.
Yeah.
Which is fine, but I'm just saying, like, if something, an agenda item pops up that there isn't a written resolution, it's okay to write that resolution post-meeting too.
yeah, or they can either craft their motion to cover some of that stuff. They could pass a resolution of intent saying, this is what we intend to have happen. So say it's like, okay, we're, something on the agenda is to discuss an issue. Let's discuss it. We frame it out. And then our intent is to put this in a more formal policy with these specific criteria that we've just debated. Kicking it over to you folks to then craft that formal resolution, bring it back and say, this is what we heard you say. Here's the specific framework. What say ye? It should go pretty quick. Yep, that's exactly what we said.
Like, like a good example would be like wage and salary.
Yep.
So rather than write a resolution that says, we propose 6%, we present our reasons why we think it should be 6%. And then the board could say, well, that's great, but we think that 4.5 is more appropriate.
Just amend the resolution.
Yeah. So you could, yeah, you could drop their lead. Yeah, if I were you, say, we're doing 6%.
Right.
We're putting that in there
You know,
and force you to have to say, no, it's 4.5, right? That's all.
Well, and also the wages shouldn't come up at a single meeting. They should have been discussed over several meetings, so people have have time to think and consider and ask questions. And then you're,
It's part of the budget process and
but
it's,
you're
and
more
so,
likely to get support if the board has
Sure.
time to ponder and has adequate
and
time.
that's politics, reading what our board, how they operate and all that stuff, right? And again, it's the end of the day, it's the majority is gonna rule, and so part of it is the budget process, right? So you're probably gonna start kicking off the budget process sometime in February, March. You start grinding through, how are we gonna put this together? At some point, you may have a meeting as you're going through the budgeting process that's gonna be just on wages and salaries. And you're gonna have that discussion, that's gonna be the meeting, we're gonna debate it, and I would say, this is where we're coming from, here's our proposed resolution, and here's our rationale for that, that supports our recommendation from the staff, or the staff recommendation. And then it's up to you to debate and say, yeah, looking at the rest of our budget, everything else, it's gonna be this. And so, yes, you're not wrong, you can do all those options, yeah.
Okay, yeah, just,
Yep.
just clarification.
So there's no right or wrong, but it's like, what is gonna work? So what's gonna work for this group? And as the dynamics over time change, there might be a greater level of acceptance. Or it might be less acceptance. We wanna sit and grind and chew and think and ruminate over every little thing. Or we're gonna say, yep, that sounds good, cause there's bigger things we wanna look at, and this is not that big of a deal. You're gonna keep it real.
Bringing up that thing is the fact that how much of a 10 mile high level you wanna look at. I mean, if we just spend all day long on somebody's wages,
Oh, I
oh my gosh, 4 months of that, that's a lot, I mean.
No.
It shouldn't be
Yeah.
even in our thinking at that point, that should be the recommendation of this district manager as far as that goes, but for everything we look at, from insurance to retirement to every little thing, we've gotta stop that, we've gotta stop micromanaging this district.
We're looking at the chair. Get that meeting going. Get that gavel out. All right, so what have we done here? We talked about electronic communication. Need any more on that, or is that good?
No.
Talked about quorum enough, submission? Video, audio, did we touch on it? We good on that?
No,
Oh, section of the law. Section of the law, that was new. It has a list of who is responsible, what governing bodies are responsible for, doing the recordings of their meetings. 214, page 6. And you do not fall within that expectation. You can choose to do it, you're not required to do it. So it's purely at your discretion.
Okay.
First and second class cities have to do audio, video. Counties have to do audio, video. Boards of health have to do audio. I don't know about video. Third class cities have to do audio only. But I think the only boards that are required to follow that law is going to be the health boards of health. And you
If
got
we
the
choose to,
department boards and all that stuff. Go ahead.
if we choose to do audio visual, do we still have to maintain minutes, or is the tape the minutes?
Great question. So, great question. If you look on page 5, the top of page 5, bottom of page 5, 23212 deals with minutes, public meetings. Appropriate minutes of all meetings are required, must be kept, must be available for inspection. Now, this is the discretion the board has, and I have strong recommendations I would like to provide to you. In my opinion, you can decide what you want to do. If an audio recording of the meeting is made and designated as official, the recording constitutes the official record of the meeting. If an official recording is made, a written record of the meeting must also be made and must also include the information specified in subsection 2. So you're not getting out of anything. You're still writing minutes. You're still writing minutes that are just like it's as you would normally, but the recording is there as an aid to the public. And it goes on to say, in number 3, if the minutes are recorded and designated as official, right? So you would have to make a resolution designating this recording be an official record. You still have to make the written minutes. The minutes are recorded and designated as official. A log or timestamp for each main agenda item is required for the purpose of providing assistance to the public and accessing that portion of the meeting. So what you need on your website is, here's our agenda. Each agenda item is hot linked. It goes right to that portion of the meeting agenda. So if I just want to see the approval of the minutes, I can click on minutes approval and it takes me to 3.5 minutes into the meeting, approval of minutes, I can watch the whole thing. If I want to see agenda item 3, it jumps me over here. Now, either you're spending buckets of hours rendering this video to make that connection, or you're buying very expensive software, starts at 50 grand to have that done kind of in a more efficient way. So usually it's the Billings, Bozeman, Kalispell, they've made that investment. It's not intended, this part of the law is intended more for those metro cities and counties than it is for these small boards. You're not saving any time by recording it and posting it, because you still have to have the written stuff. So those cities still do the written stuff and do the recordings. They have staff to deal with it. They've spent a lot of money to do it. We recommend at boards your size, I would.
So if you record it, do you have to date or stamp it? Or
No,
can you just
you
record it?
could record it as an aid for minute taking. That recording, however, you can post that. There's nothing saying you can't post that recording, but it's not gonna be I wouldn't designate it as official.
No.
You can post it, put it out there for a year or 2 years and then pull it. There's a retention schedule, Schedule 8 in the Secretary of State's office has a retention schedule that talks about these recordings. And I want to say, they keep bouncing back and forth. I want to say right now it's sitting at 2 years. You need to retain that recording until you can destroy it. Now, which is ironic, here, a county can record their meeting, post it on their website. It's not the official record. And after a year, they can pull it off and destroy it. But if you record it as an aid to make better minutes, you got to keep it for 2 years.
I just wanna make it clear.
They might have changed that since. Go ahead.
So at board of this side, it's not required to do audio or visual at every meeting.
I don't
Legal
recall seeing anything in that list under 214 that requires boards other than the Board of Health,
Thank you very much.
cities and counties.
Okay.
You can choose to do it, but it's not required as according to this section of the law.
Except
If it's not required,
We have the
why
option.
are we required to hold it?
Wait.
If it's not required to record,
Oh, so
why?
you're, because you created that record. And so then that is a record of the institution that needs to be held for a certain amount of time until it can be destroyed. So anything that you're creating is a public record that's accessible to the public. So some will say, we don't want to manage all that stuff, so we're only going to do what is statutorily required. We're not going to do anything extra because we don't have the bandwidth to manage all this additional stuff. Or we can raise your rates to accommodate more administrative support for the organization. And that's all a public decision that you can have with your public. If you want to have more access to this information, we will do it, but we're not going to do it at this rate. We're going to have to increase, 30 or 50 cents, 10, a nickel, whatever it is, to compensate and build the institutional capacity to meet what you want. Part of that facilitated conversation you're having with the public. What do you want? Everything's going to have a cost. So if you want this additional, like kind of the conversation you're having earlier, right? We're spending a whole lot of time building out this stuff, and there's 7 staff and 7, so maybe there's a conversation. If we want this much more support, then we need more institutional support. We need to budget for that. But we can't do all of our job for the number of people we have. If you want us to expand to a 10 FTE organization, but we only have funding for 7, then you're going to be disappointed. So if you want a 10 FTE organization, fund a 10 FTE organization, which means public, are you okay with raising your rates to accommodate for the additional FTE so we can do these things that you want? Go.
Is there any regulations on automatically transfer the audio to written? There's some very good software
Yeah.
program now.
Yep.
Is there any regulations on that?
No, at your discretion. If we were taping this, I don't know if this Zoom count gives you the AI that will cover all of our
Because if
voices.
we can, I don't know.
I have tried, I promise. When it's 4 hours long, it's a little hard
Yeah.
to
Yeah, but
input
there's some really
that
good
much.
good
Oh,
software
I
out
know,
there.
even my husband built me one.
So here,
And
and
it
here's,
still didn't work.
here's what's required for you. If you look there, so let's look at subsection 2. We've made reference to it several times. So back to 23212, subsection 2, minutes must include without limitation, right? And again, what I said earlier, that you still need to, if you're designated the recording, it still needs to meet this subsection 2. So must include without limitation the date, time, and place of the meeting. A list of the individual members of the public body who were in attendance. You're not required to make a list of the public that attended, but it is a tradition or typically what we do so that to aid in your making the minutes about public comment. There's another section that says public comment should be incorporated, use the word incorporated into the minutes of the meeting. Now, what does incorporated mean? I don't know. So you just figure out, how do I incorporate those comments in there? We can circle back if you want to talk more about that. The substance of those things proposed, where I'm at, discussed and decided. The substance is the word. So I would say action items, which is motion, second, vote, motion, second, vote, motion is not enough. That's action items. Robert's Rules of Order says that's all the more you need. Well, if we follow just Robert's Rules of Order, we would violate section 2 of 73212. So we need to do the substance. Now, verbatim on the other end is not required either. Word for word, don't need it unless you just want to cut and paste that, and it'd be a hassle. So it's the substance. So then you're sitting there taking your notes and saying, okay, we spent 45 minutes talking about X subject. What was the main themes that came out of it? If you're thinking your audience is this board thinking, yeah, that represented what we talked about, and this board in 20 years, if they were to read these minutes, would it make sense why they made the decision they made? So you don't have to say, Larry said this, Bob said that, Sue said this, but say, but generally we talked about this. This was the sentiment in support. This was some of the ideas against it. And at the end of the day, they chose to do it this with a 3-2 vote. And that would be basically the substance, enough information for you to get a sense of why we made the decision we made. The other audience you might want to be thinking is the court. Have we explained this as sufficient to where we would feel that if we were brought to a court and say, defend your reasons why using your minutes, you know, then that might be too high of a standard. You got to decide. But it's like, yeah, well, we decided it. And sometimes that would be in your benefit. Because that at the end of the day, it's going to be the official record. This is what we adopted. So this is the record that we're going to look at, or if you have a recording still on. So the other thing is, if it says after 2 years to destroy the recording, destroy it in 2 years. Until you get a lawsuit that says, okay, we need to, what do they call it from yeah, they have to, they require all the things related to this lawsuit have to be discovered. It becomes part of discovery. Then you can't destroy it, even if it comes up. So what happened in a couple of communities, they had records that were retained longer than the schedule. And before the statute of limitations for that, whatever the issue was, expired like within weeks, they had prepared to destroy these old records. They got sued, and then that was all brought up in discovery. So then that did not work well for the city because all that records wasn't
destroyed.
they should have destroyed it because it didn't work well for them in the lawsuit. So,
But what if the secretary, you know, you're saying just the substance of what the discussion was, but what if there's argument as to what somebody once said?
Yep.
How do you, and.
that's
what's
up to you
happened
guys.
And that's happened to Jen a few times.
Yep,
Well, this
that's-
is kind of what this is what I got, and somebody says, well, that's not exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And then she's like, well, I'm sorry, this is what I want.
You're Switzerland. Don't take offense by anything they say. This is my first, what is my staff call? I apologize if this is too PG-13 for you. She said, this is my shitty first draft. I'm just throwing it out there. It's the crap. Don't be offended. So that, because she says it all the time, my shitty first draft. So I have no ownership. This is the minutes as I saw it. Now you guys look at it and you debate it and fuss and cuss over it and whether it's accurate or not. End of the day. So this is the other things we've had public come in and say, that's not what I said, or I want what I said word for word. Well, it says incorporated into the minutes.
Right.
So it is at your discretion for public comment. How do we capture the comment made by the public and represent that in the meeting minutes? So part of it is you kind of get a feel, and once as a board, you feel comfortable with, yes, this feels like an accurate representation of what took place and what decisions were made, we're gonna approve it. Don't spend, you can sit, if you choose to, you can nitpick everything, right? And if, as a board, you say, look, I'm not, if you wanna just nitpick it, and I say, you know what, we're moving on. I move to accept these, and you say, I move to amend them, yep. Second, no second, we're moving on, right? Get your, but don't discuss things, don't give each other airtime unless there's a motion on the floor. And let's discuss that motion, and chair, dispatch that motion. Right, you got,
Maybe.
let's go, 3 minutes go, you got nothing to say, we're moving on, right, just keep it going.
Pretty good at that.
That, fantastic, that's great. And so if, motion on the floor is to accept the minutes as written. Is there any comment or amendments? Comment or amendments? Seeing no comment or amendments, those in favor of adopting these as written, say aye. Aye, motion carries. Or better yet, you say without objection, these minutes stand.
I like that one better.
I love that one. And if you have an objection, just pause for a second without objection. Okay, they're approved, right? And in your minutes, it says by unanimous consent, the minutes were approved.
Or without objection?
Or without objection, the minutes were approved. Either way, you can, you're, by not objecting, you're consenting. Either way, you can write it up. So that can speed things up where you can just say, hey, without objection. All right. Anything else up here? Committees, let me just quickly go back to page 5. Where am I at here? Page 5. Oh, there we go. Page 5, 23203, bottom number 6. Any committee or subcommittee appointed by the board or an association described in subsection 2 for the purpose of conducting business that is within the jurisdiction of this agency is subject to the requirements of this section. Meaning, if you create a committee to deal, you can create a committee to review your proposed rate increase. And you want a citizen group to review that and make recommendations back to you. That committee that you appoint is a public body and it has to comply with all these same regulations that you have to comply with for open meetings. They need an agenda, they need to notice it, they need to allow public comment, they need to have minutes. All those things still apply. That committee creates a subcommittee, which they shouldn't. That committee is saying, so you can't say, oh, we're just gonna farm this out so we can get around the open meeting laws. Any subdivision of government that you create is gonna have to follow the same open meeting rules. Does that make sense?
No.
I'm not asking for logic.
Yeah.
So I have
Do you understand the words that came out of my mouth?
the minutes for every committee meeting, everything.
Same rules.
So it comes back to, are we operating as an organization, the standard of this 10 FTE, but we're funding 7? Right? So it just recognize that we can't get everything done because we're doing all this stuff that's statutory required that we do. We have a duty to do these things, write up minutes. You're working for 40 hours a week. I can only do so much. We
But if
had
you
one.
don't have a quorum, you don't, like we have a subcommittee reviewing, the 401k, for instance. We had 2 members from the board that were not.
Yeah.
Three,
We
we had 3.
3. So that subcommittee you create, then because it's own governing body that has a quorum, if there's 3 members, 2 creates the quorum.
3 members doesn't create a quorum on 7.
So if you create a subcommittee,
2 creates a quorum of the 3.
that subcommittee becomes its own governing body that has its own quorum requirements.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
no,
It does, but we don't like it.
We don't like it, but I understand. So if
so
you
what
had
you're
a,
saying is that that's like a completely different organization.
as far as a public entity that's conducting business on behalf of the public, yes, it has its own standards and criteria to meet.
If we had 2 board
Uh-huh.
members, still,
Doesn't matter. If you have 2 board members and a citizen,
with Tom, that's a quorum.
yeah.
oh, I got an idea. Next time we have a subcommittee meeting,
We
With
won't have,
everybody.
It won't matter. You still create the subcommittee of 3 citizens. So, users creating that board, that's still a subdivision of your government, that's still conducting business on your behalf. They still need to be open. So it doesn't matter who's on the board, it's the fact that there is a subcommittee that creates the board. Does that make sense?
The other
They
point,
don't like it.
Well, I think it brings up McDonald's.
in all the meetings with the city,
Yep, they do.
Yep, so the city has a so here,
no, we have meetings with the city,
Yeah.
like bi-monthly meetings with the city.
So
that
it
aren't
depends.
noticed.
You may be required, if you've said, here's our subcommittee, it's gonna deal with this consolidation thing. That, as far as you're concerned, that's our subcommittee, we're gonna notice that meeting. Now, the city may have that engagement with you as an administrative function. That they are not, that the council's not approving a committee, it's just gonna be the public works director, the assistant city manager, and their legal counsel. That is not a committee, that's an administrative function. So on the city side, they may not be required to notice the meeting. But because you, and how you structured yours, you would be required.
So if we
If-
have.
So Bo is gonna be
We're gonna send- we're
assigned
gonna send-
committees from
We're
now
gonna
on.
send, oh, go ahead.
Just have our administration do the work, not board members, it's the same way.
Yep, you guys go, you meet with their administration, you hammer out the details, you come back to us, which should be likely the case, bring it back to us, we'll either accept it or reject it. It's the same way you do union negotiations. The council doesn't get involved in union negotiations. It's the administration, it's the management works with the union rep, they work out, hammer out a collective bargaining agreement, bring it back to the council and approve it. This could be the same thing. Staff, you go down and figure out, you guys know what's going on, you go figure it out, you come back and we'll either accept it or reject it, or say, we like this part, don't like that part, go back. And so that meeting discussion, but you don't need to have
So like you.
board members going down there.
I'm the vice president, you're the manager, so we're administration.
No.
If the board appoints a subcommittee, so a committee, they say, we're gonna create a committee that's gonna review and be the point on this consolidation. And we're gonna put you, and you on there, that's a committee. If you just say as a board, administration, figure it out. Come back when you have something for us to comment on. That's not a committee. That's an administrative function of the executive branch of this ordinance, of the district. So you gotta put your faith into them,
Or
say,
you can come to the meeting, Frank.
Now you gotta, so,
and then you just gotta say, you're the professionals, do it. We are not the professionals. We are here to hear what you come back to us with, right? That's that altitude discussion. What is the role of the board? And getting into the nitty-gritty of that stuff is not necessarily the role of the board. The board is to accept whatever is hammered out by your staff. You've got professional staff, you pay money to deal with this stuff. We're the policy board. We're not hammering out negotiated agreements. We pass policy. You figure out the agreement, bring it to us as a policy to pass. We don't like, we'll give you a recommendation, we'll say, we like this, here's the framework we'd like to operate with. Go and work within that framework. So, that's how they usually do collective bargaining.
Well, so let's say, just take this for example, because it was bad. Committee of 3, I didn't show up for a meeting, they sent me the notes to the meeting, and I put, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this, and I don't like this.
That's too bad.
I know, but the point was,
Like $100.
Yeah,
that's what I spent 7 hours
yeah,
on that. You didn't show up for the meeting, it's too bad.
yeah.
I mean.
Well, the decision's already been made, we're just telling you what happened.
Well, they asked me, this is what we're gonna do on this, on the meeting, and they asked me for my opinion on it. Well, we don't like it, we
Yeah.
just wanna move on.
Yeah.
So what the heck?
Right. So what happens is that committee is doing some grinding out here, working out some of the details, and they're gonna bring whatever recommendation comes back to this whole board for full consideration and adoption. So at that point, you still have a voice as a member of the board.
Well, it's already been passed. I mean, I know it
hasn't.
Well, if it comes from the board, if it's the committee is doing that busy work down here, hammering it out. If you missed the meeting where they had the discussion here, yeah, you missed the meeting. Your voice won't be heard. But if you missed the meeting down here where they worked out some of the details, brought it to the full board, you still have a full voice.
Okay,
This is what we
That's what I
recommended,
wanted
but the whole board's still gonna debate it. And you can say, yeah, here's my dissenting opinion.
so I guess,
But at the end of the day, the board's gonna decide.
so like the consolidation committee, where it's 3 board members, that now has to be noticed 48 hours in advance. They have to have an agenda, it has to, and somebody. Can somebody nominate themselves, so like Frank's a member of that committee, can he nominate himself the record keeper to do the minutes? Or does
No.
our board secretary? I picked on you because you're here.
You'll be very disappointed with the promise.
So would a
I
committee
think all,
they suffice as the minute taker?
Yes.
And then they write the minutes, or does the board secretary have to go with that?
No, so you can decide, and that's at the discretion. If you want to send the board secretary to all these committee meetings, great. If you don't, then as a committee, when you come back, you better have written minutes. You gotta decide how that's gonna happen. You can either decide, we're gonna assign it to someone, we're gonna appoint a board, you're gonna be the chair, you're gonna be the note taker, you're gonna be the participant, you're gonna do, and this is your charge. I would say, this is what we want you to do, report back in 2 weeks with some sort of recommendation. You can do that, and what you'll find is that may be a lot of headache for you. And maybe some of those things that you're farting over, can I say that, should be just given to the staff. You figure it out and give us a recommendation. Right? We don't need to be discussing all this. That's why we have staff. And maybe some of the things that you're farting over really doesn't need to be, it's like, whatever, you know? But there might be some important things you might want to farm out to committees. Some of it, give the staff, give us a recommendation. And maybe there just isn't enough of them to do that in a timely manner.
So
Which
if
is a
you
whole
got,
other
if you
discussion.
got two sides, any person from either side can take the minutes of the meeting and then just make copies of them and share them.
The city's
Well, it's
not,
gotta- it's gotta be
No,
water,
not the city.
ice, water.
Does it have to be one of our board
Yeah.
members
Or does it
or
have to be-
me?
Oh,
to
so
do
so
the
if you're
minutes?
meeting with another board from another organization, so two boards that are meeting, it'd be like if you have a joint meeting with the city council. City council is gonna have their meeting minutes of that meeting, you'll have your meeting minutes. They may not look the same.
But in this specific case, it's our board meeting with their administration.
If they're administration, so you're the only one's gonna have
Right.
official minutes. They may have minutes of their meetings, but it's gonna be administrative. It's like they're gonna pass that along to, up the chain. You know.
Actually, they put it in their public, in the city manager's weekly notice.
Yeah, so it might show up there. So maybe it's still, whatever they write up, it's still gonna be a public record. If someone wanted to ask for those minutes, they would be available. May not be posted as the normal minutes, but it's, my point being is the law has, or the courts, there was a lawsuit that a city was sued by a newspaper because the mayor, the public works director, and their engineer was having a meeting discussing a public works project. And the press wanted to be present and observe that. And they said, hey, and they said, the court said, no, that's the administrative side. The right of the public to participate and be noticed and all this stuff is the legislative side. So that's the difference here. If your legislative board creates another subcommittee, that's another legislative function. You've got a whole administrative staff, you've got an executive branch that they can do a lot of this stuff and have meetings that don't need to be noticed because that's the executive branch. They don't make decisions. You make recommendations, which then would sit the light of day, get on an agenda, have public comment, get the scrutiny that it deserves. But they can do a lot of this churning and chewing up stuff and figuring stuff out and bring it to you. Just give them the framework. This is the thing we'd like to see. Figure out, give us the details, put it out in a policy, we can adopt it. Right? If you're having to fight over, but it's, discuss back and forth and trying to figure out what is this all gonna be? That's why you got stuff.
Good. Got one more question. You may have already answered this, but we've got another situation where, Susie, the gal at the front desk, she sends out, information on our monthly bills and gets approval from 3, I think, board members. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but she gets approval from 3 of them. So it's a communication between all 4 of them, including Susie. And they give her answers back saying, yes, these are approved, you can pay these now.
The claims.
Yeah,
no, if she could pay him, if she doesn't get any dissent.
Right, from any board
It's
member.
not
Right.
approval of anybody because that's a committee.
so you just
It's
don't
dissent.
respond? Is that what, or are you saying?
Yeah,
yes,
it's a good
you're-
question. So
Is that how that works?
the claims, the law says on claims is that so the way the finances work is the board will approve a budget, which is you're appropriating public funds to be used in these particular fund categories. Then the administration says, okay, we've got our marching orders. We're gonna now spend money in these categories as budgeted by you. When you spend the money, you then submit back to the commission or the board. Here's the invoice, here's how we spend it, here's the fund category it comes out of in the budget. And what you do is you check it for accuracy. At that point, you don't say no, because you already decided way back in earlier in the year that we decided to spend this money. It's not a matter of spending it, it's a matter of, is it accurately recorded within the chart of the BAR's chart of accounts, and do we have an invoice? It doesn't meet all of our standards for an appropriate expenditure based on our budget. So if we have board members that pass the budget and then doesn't like, I don't like that you bought the red pickup, I wanted the blue pickup, so I'm not gonna approve that claim. That's not an
That
option.
isn't the issue. The issue is what the engineers charge for and the inappropriateness of it. And so the board has rejected some of the invoices for some specific items. And that seems perfectly appropriate. They were taking us to claims.
Well,
Well,
so
I
what
was just
what they need to do
referring
is.
to like the daily, the monthly bills, the
Yeah,
the
so the
lights,
day-to-day operations.
you know, the
lights,
lights, the gas,
newspaper,
that kind of stuff. That's what I was
yeah,
referring
yeah.
to.
So that's what I would, did that make sense? So if you set up a system, and that's typically where it comes before the board, where you say, yeah, pay the bills, and we'll formally adopt it by a motion of the board at a future meeting, but you've set up some mechanism to have eyes on it before we do it. I think that might be okay.
Yeah.
Check with your auditor. Do you have an auditor?
Yeah, of course.
Ask your auditor and say, this is our policy of how we're going to make sure that these bills are paid in a timely way. Is this meet your standard? And they'll say yay or nay, or give you suggestions, go. No,
What we got into with state law, like 22 somewhere, 7/13/22 somewhere, clearly says that all, there's a name for a bill. Must be
A warrant,
first approved. All warrants must be approved by at least 3 board members before they're paid. There is
Yep.
nothing in 7/13/22 or 23 requiring a district like this to have a budget. Nothing, but it requires at least.
not in
3
not in 7/13, but in 7/6. You gotta do it, you gotta
Every
do
time
your,
we get bored, we start bringing in another section of state code that's not referenced in 22 or 23, the judge throws it out. We did
So-
that with the case that Pat mentioned,
yeah.
and other sections of state law were brought up, and the judge says they don't apply, they're not referenced in parts 22 or 23. So
But-
here we.
But
have
if other
this-
parts of the law says that all public monies need to be done this way, then you're looped in. So it's not necessarily coming from 22 or 23 saying, referencing that, it could be the other way saying, so you've got to do an AFR. Annual financial report, you've got to submit, that's the Local Government Budget Act that applies to all local governments. Districts, so all districts have to submit their AFR, all districts have to submit a budget to the Department of Administration. So there are standards that you have to meet on the budget and finance side that is found in Title or 7.6, Chapter 6, that you have to meet those standards. It's not gonna reference it, all the other places that it applies, because it says anybody within this system has to operate this way, including you folks.
That's,
Yeah.
it says all warrants must be first approved by at least 3 board members, so. We can't set up a committee, so he said, if any board member objects to a bill, then it's held and voted on at a meeting.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they'll pay,
Yep, and then I would write that as a policy
and that's been our policy.
and have your auditor review it and make sure that they're okay with that policy, that it meets the law. Because if they come back and say that's not gonna work, and you argue with them, well, this is the law, and that, and they say, nope, I'm not doing it, then you're gonna be written up and you'll have a finding, and that's not gonna be good either. That's also another powerful
We
thing
are
we gotta.
getting
pay
into
homage to.
budget.
Yeah.
So, this is the 3rd or 4th year of the budget,
Commentary, isn't it?
I think it is.
It had 62 years.
When you're trying to meet the regulations of state law,
Yeah. It helps to have an attorney to help you navigate this as well, or staff that can spend the hours looking on this and give you the guidance.
We now do have a good attorney, so.
Yeah, that's helpful. You heard about Susan Swinley before?
yeah,
The general manager shall ensure that the district establishes and maintains a system of auditing and accounting that shows the financial condition of the district. Draw or cause the secretary to draw warrants to pay demands made against the district that have been first approved by at least 3 members of the board and and the general manager, and perform other duties that may be imposed by the board. The general manager shall report to the board in accordance with these rules that it may adopt. Oh, that it may adopt, sorry, period. I
And
got excited
this is
about
one of
this.
the standards that, where the law is incompatible with the district, because every other district in the state has five board members. 799 districts have 5 board members, and this board has 7 going to 6. So,
There's not another district as sick as this one in the state either.
Yeah, so I don't know if 7's better than 6 or better than 5, right? You can make crappy decisions with 7, you make
Crappy
crappy
decisions.
decisions with 5 or 1, right? So, or you make great decisions. So, so if this is giving you heartburn, the other thing is you go back to the county and say, look, you created a resolution that established us. You created enabling legislation that created who we are. And let's go back and negotiate. Let's create another resolution establishing that we will have now 5 instead of 6. And they can amend the existing resolution to say it's gonna be 5.
They did that. They got rid of the county and city appointees, made them ex officio. But there was also a rider on that bill that called out the city of Billings and Heights Water, stating that the city had the right to appoint a voting member that served at their pleasure.
And it doesn't say.
But it was related to the percentage of city residents that the district served.
Regardless, it was
Yeah.
still,
But that's why the city member got on.
But
It's
if you look at-
over 60%.
You guys got a whole swirling mess. I'm
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
back out of that whole conversation. That's what I would recommend is, you know, go to the parties and say, look, this would be the ideal. How do we work there? And part of it is, frankly, is that there's probably not a lot of trust between the county, the city, and you folks to be able to have those conversations,
Yeah.
because you haven't established a level of trust or competence that demonstrate that, yeah, we're willing to work to find a good resolution to these issues. At the end of the day, what you want is to deliver water to the folks in this area at an affordable rate, and that is thoughtful of over time. Right? So anyway, so those are things to work at. We'll do that. A phone call, that's kind of exciting. Vibrate there. Anyway, so did we get everything? Walking meetings, and that's where, so like the manager goes and says, hey, I talked to you. What do you think about this idea? Great, I'm gonna talk to you and say, hey, I talked to her and to you, what do you think? And then I'm gonna come, hey, I talked to him. And what we're doing is we're accumulating consensus through the line. And so it might be efficient for you, but that would be, you're circumventing the open meeting process. You're going through, and so the courts have found that to be what they call a walking meeting, or what did you use? A serial meeting. There's a lot of different phrases for it. So not good. They did that in Dillon, and they big whole story, but the courts ended up removing 4 or 5 of the 7 council members who participated in that walking meeting. They all signed a document that the council president said, hey, read this document, you're going to sign it, read this document, you're going to sign it. And so, and then they came back and said, here, Mayor, we all signed this and we don't like what you're doing. And the mayor said, can I have that? Because that'll be exhibit A in my lawsuit against the council. And prevailed, and then they got booted off for violating their oath of office. So it's rare that those things happen, but that kind of sits and hangs out there for us. It's like, okay, that's a cautionary tale. Again, the intent is we're gonna come together. This is the place where we mediate our differences in the community. We're gonna assign responsibility to the staff to do things. But most of the governing part of it, we're gonna conduct in the open process of the community.
So that only works for us, but the state legislature.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
They go out and they don't even bring it to the floor, so how can they get by with it? It's public also.
Yeah, sue them.
Okay,
Sue them. They need, oh, yeah, so do not use the legislature as a standard. Hopefully nobody's in the room. You look very familiar to me, and that's why I think, so the legislature shouldn't be used as a standard for how we govern in the state. There's nothing in the law that carves out an exception for the legislative process for the legislature. I think they should comply with the same standard you have to for noticing 48 hours, have an agenda. So I think that's an expectation that so far, the public has never pushed back from the legislature, said, no. Having been a victim, funding for my center was decided at 10 o'clock one night for an 8 o'clock Monday morning meeting, and then I was penalized for not being there to talk to my bill. And it's like, I didn't even know. I wasn't watching at 2 in the morning when it went up on the website that they were having an 8 AM to discuss that bill. So anyway, so I wouldn't look to the legislature as being a standard for us to, now, other than those committee meetings, I think they do a great job in maintaining decorum. If you've got a good chair and you speak, everything comes through the chair. We're not having any of this back and forth. If you want to call people's names out, I'm gonna wrap the gavel and say, no, we're not calling people out. We're talking about policy, not people, right? So hold people, we're gonna have a higher level of standard of how we communicate with each other so we can conduct the business, and we're not gonna grind out grudges and slights because, oh, you didn't vote for me on my idea, and oh, you pissed me off on that, and I'm gonna call you out on these things over the next 9 years.
So
It's-
they still
we
have
made a
to
decision, we're moving on.
Notice 48 hours ahead.
Yeah, they do a great, but they do allow proxy votes, which,
Again,
you know.
I would not get these as the standard
Right.
of how government should be conducted. And that's why we end up with 1,500 bills approved by whatever it is. It's like, is that, I don't know, anyway.
No, it's only 6 and 700 out of
That's right, they
2,000.
have, transmittal is usually where a lot of that stuff drops off. Yeah,
Right.
but they start out with a huge number, but, end up with 700 or
And the
800.
trouble is they need proxy votes because they're on so many committees, and when it comes down to the.
Why do they have so many committees that are meeting all concurrently?
Right, well, because they have too much work to get done and they didn't get it done.
Because they got too many bills, that's why.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
If the court came down and said, you need to provide the same standard of noticing that everyone else does in the state, it would dramatically change the tone and tenor of the legislature, that they would really be thoughtful about what they're gonna be fussing about and dealing with and deliberating on. And it'd be a much more robust conversation around the state instead of, you know,
Yeah, but that would have to hold true to the courts also then.
right.
Well, the
Yeah.
legislature was.
Oops.
MCA,
Yep,
how many of those MCAs on there supersede other ones that should have been wiped out, but they're still there? That's why the stack is this big and it should only be this big.
here's a story. The local government center years ago was looking at Title VII, which is dealing with all local governments, saying, boy, there's a lot of things that are awkward and need to be cleaned up. So a panel and committee of city and county attorneys, elected officials, staff members, and they sat down and they worked for 2 years with proposals and recommendations to streamline Title VII. They went and found people to carry the bills, it went to the legislature, and at the result of that, it got bigger. So they said, okay, we're not doing that again. And this is one of the areas of that Title VII grows each year. At one point, it was 790 pages. Now it's up over 1,000 pages, Title VII. So it's growing all the time. But in the defense of the legislature is things are getting more and more complicated. And so some of these standards or this transparency, like adding the, that you got to comment or record and all those other things, hopefully it's getting better, but you're right. There's a lot of things that it needs to be cleaned up. It's just a lot of hard work.
Like if you ride a horse to school, the school board has to feed your horse and stable it. Right. I mean, come on,
Yeah.
we don't need that anymore.
It also says in the law that you can't wear bonnets, sun bonnets in movie theaters.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
still in the state law.
But you can wear cowboy hats.
Yeah.
That feed your horse got taken.
Did they
no,
take that?
that's still there.
Anyway, I do appreciate the work that you've done in the legislature. Are you still in there or are you out? Are you out?
No, I termed out.
So it's a hard job and I always rag on you guys but it is, I do appreciate what you do. It does get frustrating at times, but I recognize it is a challenging environment to operate in a 90 days. It's a complicated world and so rather than going every year, which almost, with all the interim committees, it's almost like we're going year round, but. Anyways, go ahead, sorry.
I'm familiar with the goofy rules for county commissioners and meeting laws. Those are almost insane.
Yeah.
Okay, 4 of us are standing out in the parking lot and we're talking about employee wages. Is that a meeting?
Yes.
Because there's a quorum and you're discussing something within your jurisdiction. Now, if the topic comes up and one of you says, oh, this would be a quorum, I'm out, I'm going, now it's 3, I don't have a problem with that. It's when it becomes 4, and this is one of those advantages of having 6. Because 4 is a quorum. And so that's a little, it's a little more challenging. So it's the meeting after the meeting is what you're talking about. And we're all gonna, and so that's not uncommon. We adjourn the meeting and then we have the real conversation about, so try not, when you join the meeting, just get up and walk out. Don't go down to McDonald's and hang out and talk about it. Because last thing you go to the bar or whatever, the last thing people in the district will come by and say, oh, there's a quorum. What are they talking about? They must, and then that trust augers down. You could be talking about the football game or hunting or whatever, which is,
Yeah,
but
that ain't what they're gonna see.
but that's not what they think, and that's really the perception, is the level of trust they're gonna give to you is based on the perception of what they think you're doing. If they think you're playing a fast one, it's like, yeah, and then when you don't give comment or reasons why you made the decision, well, that, you discussed that at the McDonald's meeting, that was never noticed in no minutes and, so those are the things that might come up.
Well, 4 of us go to like Christmas party together.
Oh, yeah, that's a fun one.
Nothing is said about
Yep.
county water district.
So we used to, when I was the mayor, we used to have a Christmas party and we would notice. Council and mayor are gonna be participating in the Christmas party from, 5 to 7 before the council meeting. No business to be discussed. We didn't say the public is welcome, but we did invite the press. And so the local newspaper editor shows up. We had a wonderful time. We didn't talk any business, but it was a chance to connect and share. So we weren't hearing, discussing, or acting on something. It was just a collection of people that were, and the press was there to keep us honest. A lot of wine was consumed. The meeting we had after that, was kind of interesting.
That's what we're gonna say.
Wow, the filters were off. And, so a lot of tipsy council members, and they were really honest about how their feelings were about a lot of things during that meeting.
If two county commissioners drive up to Helena for a legislative meeting, it has to be posted that they are doing that on their calendar.
Yeah.
They're carpooling.
Yeah.
And if they discuss anything within the county, they have to come back and report to the public during our car drive. This is what we discussed, and we're gonna disclose that to the public. So it's gotta be noticed, they gotta come back and disclose it. And again, I'm not sure. I know the legislature passed that in order to aid this. I'm not sure if it will be challenged by someone who felt harm, particularly if I'm a land developer.
Yes.
Right, and now, so I think if the right situation shows up, that could be challenged, which might crumble that statute that but it's how the system works. The legislature said that's gonna be law, we'll operate by that law until it's challenged in the court, and the court may confirm it, say, yep, it's good or not. So ride that pony until the court says, get off. So that's kind of how that works. Would you concur with that?
I concur.
Yeah, the legislature's like, I'm not sure about this, but let's try it. And so there's been a lot of things that they said, let's just try it and we'll see what happens, and the court may strike it down in the future. And sometimes your legal counsel, the legislature will say, yeah, that's not gonna pass, and like, yeah, we're gonna do it anyway. And we'll force the issue, force the conversation, put it in precedence for us to look at in the future. So it's all an experiment. 3 branches of government. The judicial branch is an important one to hold the whole thing accountable. So, yeah, I look at those lawsuits as we try to clarify those things, not as necessarily as a bad thing, particularly when we don't know what the answer is. We'll try it, figure out, sue us if we don't, and we'll, or get an AG opinion or something else.
Yeah, when you're this little, it's best not to have a lot, it's best not to have a lawsuit. It's better to maximize your.
If you know I'm pushing the line and we don't want, so yeah, there's no reason to push the line or think, yeah, I don't think this is gonna pass, we're gonna do it anyway. That's not a good strategy. But if you think, no, I think clearly we have the authority to do this, we're gonna do it. And, until we're told otherwise, and that's why I have good legal counsel.
I think in closing here.
Yes.
We all learned a lot. Yeah, especially from New York. And it's impossible for you to always act as a consultant, because I think we touch on a lot of things. I got 4 pages of notes. And I know of at least half a dozen things we are currently doing wrong. You know, so we need to make it right.
Yeah.
And we all need a refresher like this, probably every 3 years or so, because the law changed, we changed, the board changed. But I think that this is the basic stuff, and this is what
You get
it's
this,
all based on, so.
yeah, you get that locked down.
If you don't mind, we might have some question, and what I like to propose to the board is that we
can't do
document
that
it
now.
and write them down what it is that we need to know. And Doug is sitting here, he doesn't participate, but I think there will be a number of questions that we have, and if you don't mind, follow-up questions. Josh, and I think you and I have some question. And we are looking for direction to change the work we are doing so we can do a better job making the board more effective.
Yeah, we've had discussions about creating a listserv. We have a lot of listservs that we manage. So we have listservs for all the municipal clerks, a listserv for all the public works directors, a listserv for the mayors, that they then can share questions amongst other. So we've talked about having a listserv for water and sewer districts, so that you can be then connected to your peers around the state, that there might be something that, hey, has someone come across this, or does someone have a policy that they've created on that? And so you're drawing upon that greater experience of the community.
Right.
And so you're not reinventing the wheel. So that's what really hurts my heart, is when you wrestle with an issue and create a policy, and someone else across the state is doing the exact same thing and comes out with the exact same outcome. It's like, wow, that's a lot of energy. So how do we share? It's like, oh yeah, we worked on this, happy to share it. And someone else, you know, I get the benefit from some other board that wrestled with something. We haven't done it yet because there's not a good way for us, unless you know a way to connect with the other district managers.
Well, we do that.
Do you have a system already set up to do the role?
Well, we have benefits, salaries, that sort of thing.
Yep.
But also, I think we're working a lot closer with the city. I'm not talking on a upper level, but technical.
Yeah.
We have some additional, I mentioned briefly, non-revenue water. I mean, the EPA is big on that. Most utilities are big about that. We don't talk about it. What is it? How big is the question? 40, 50,000 a month.
Yeah.
Can we cut it by 10%? Yeah, absolutely. If we put in effort, we can do it. There's no question about it. So we need to start a dialogue on what it is we need to do. And we work with, like the city. I try to have them change the big meter. We have digital meters. We have 6,200. And we drive around, electronically pick up all the data.
Yep.
But the biggest meter of them all is in the Waller pump station. It is read manually once a month.
Hmm.
Now, I like to control things. I like to control what comes in, especially if I'm gonna pay for it. We pay $3 million for somebody who reads the meter manually. And everything else electronic. Come on, so we need more timely billing, but for us to manage this district, Josh and I, we need to know what's coming in and coming out. All our other station, pumping station, I can see 24/7 how many gallons are coming out of them, okay? I need to add it up and see what's coming in.
Yeah.
24.
Good.
I'm just.
Want me to order donuts?
We're working on things like that. And on the
See ya.
financial end,
See you, Doug.
we are doing better than they are as far as labor cost.